The first call I got from my younger sister, Lois, came just before our mother's funeral. Lois hadn't responded to any of my messages before that. She told me she had just returned from Hawaii with her husband, Keith, and brought me some chocolate souvenirs. I was furious at how thoughtless she was, especially since our mother had just passed away, so I yelled at her in front of the whole family. I told her, "You can have my husband, just get to the funeral already." Lois was shocked and replied with a confused "what?" from the other end of the phone. After giving her the funeral home address, I angrily hung up. I knew she would try calling back, so I turned off my phone, sat down in the family seating area, and tried to calm down. My name is Emily, and I'm 38 years old. I grew up in a family of 4, my parents, my younger sister Lois, and me. My parents were strict with me, the oldest, but they always spoiled Lois because of her pretty looks. Whenever Lois wanted something, she would give a sweet smile and say, "Emily, I want this." I would almost always give in, even though I regretted it. This pattern continued even as she grew older. Lois became very troublesome, and my father passed away 8 years ago. About 6 months ago, my mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness and had been in and out of the hospital. I married Keith, a senior colleague from my work, 2 years ago and moved into an apartment near my office. Over the last 6 months, I had been driving an hour each way to care for our sick mother while also working. Lois, however, had quit her job a year ago after breaking up with her boyfriend, and had moved back home. She kept telling me I was better at taking care of our mother and pushed the responsibility onto me. So, I took a month off work to look after her. Despite my efforts, she passed away 2 days ago. Where was Lois? She had gone to Hawaii a week before our mother passed, even though I begged her not to leave. At the funeral, after the priest finished speaking, friends and family began to pay their respects. It was clear how loved our mother was, because not only family but many of her friends also came to mourn. Even some of my colleagues from work showed up. One of them, Keith's father, the president of my company, was there, offering his condolences. He had been very supportive throughout my difficult time, but I couldn't find Keith anywhere at the funeral. Where was he? Keith had been on a business trip overseas since last week, and I couldn't reach him. "I see," my father-in-law said. "I'll ask the sales manager about it. Keith and I work in different departments, and he's in sales. He often complains that I'm always busy with my own work and business trips." I tried to understand that Keith wasn't here during this difficult time, but I was still worried about handling everything on my own, especially since I couldn't get in touch with him or my sister. Meanwhile, my father-in-law took time out of his busy schedule to come to the funeral, and his support almost made me cry. I was really grateful, but I had to hold back the tears as I sat in the limo heading to the crematory with the rest of the family. When I turned my phone back on, hoping Keith might have tried to contact me, I was shocked to see nearly 30 voicemails, most of them from Lois. In one, she yelled, "Answer your phone. You can't just make up ridiculous lies because you're upset that I took Keith from you." I was confused, but then it hit me. Lois and Keith were having an affair. My heart raced as I listened to more messages. One from Keith said, "I'm so sorry, but you're a strong woman. You can survive on your own, but I need to support Lois. Let's break up." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like a line from a soap opera. I felt sick to my stomach, wishing I hadn't found out this way. Why did I have to learn that my husband and my sister were having an affair, and having a great time in Hawaii during my mother's funeral? I called Lois and told her, "You need to come right away if you want to say your final goodbye to Mom. We're already on the way to the crematory." Lois replied, "That's not funny. Stop lying. You're just bitter because I took Keith from you." I couldn't believe what she was saying. I told her, "But it's the truth. You must be upset about losing your husband." "Yeah, Keith is going to be the next company president, and he's rich. I understand how you feel, but there are good lies and bad lies, you know? You're an adult. You should know better." She shocked me when she said, "I never thought I'd hear that from you." Then she admitted, "I didn't know you and Keith had been cheating." I could tell Lois was happy about all of this. Ever since we were kids, she loved playing tricks on me and laughing when I fell for them. I sighed in frustration. This isn't the time for this. I told her again, "If you want to say your final goodbye to Mom, come now." Lois didn't listen. She asked, "Why do you have to bring up Dad?" Her voice sounded like she and Keith were having a discussion, and it seemed like they didn't expect me to mention him. Then, Keith took the phone. "Emily, is it true?" he asked. I replied, "If you don't believe me, do whatever you want. I'm hanging up now." After a while, we arrived at the crematory. This was my last chance to say goodbye to Mom, and my mind was a mess from everything that had happened over the last few days, plus the grief of losing her. I didn't know what to do anymore, and tears started running down my cheeks. Seeing me like this, one of my relatives patted my back and said, "Your mom would be so grateful to you, Emily, for taking care of her until the end." I stood in front of my mother's casket and said my final goodbye. "Mom, thank you for everything. I'm going to miss you so much." Just as the casket was being carried out for cremation, Lois and Keith rushed in. Lois screamed, "Wait, where's Mom?" When she saw the casket disappearing behind the doors, she tried to reach for it, but the doors shut mercilessly in front of her. "No, I haven't said goodbye to Mom yet," Lois wailed, and Keith stood behind her, stunned. "I told them, we need to move. You're disturbing everyone," Lois cried. "Why didn't you tell me, Emily? I couldn't see Mom at the end." "It's your fault." I was furious. "My fault? You should have listened when I told you how serious Mom's condition was. I can't even count how many times I explained it to you. Every time, you'd just say, 'I don't know how to handle this. I'll leave it to you, Emily.'" Lois snapped back. "It's your fault because you didn't explain things clearly enough." Even Keith started blaming me too. I glared at them. "Then what were you two doing all this time? You were on a romantic vacation in Hawaii, right?" The relatives were shocked and whispered among themselves. They had seen how Lois and Keith had been acting, and I'd been making excuses for them, so they wouldn't look bad. I looked at Mom's casket, apologizing in my mind. I had to clear things up now. "How long has this affair been going on? You knew I was taking time off to care for Mom." I was struggling and asked for help, but all you two did was have fun together, didn't you? Lois interrupted. "Enough, it's all your fault, Emily. You didn't keep Keith close enough." I was confused. "What are you talking about?" Keith spoke up. "You need to prioritize your husband more. He got bored at home because all you ever talked about was work and caregiving." Poor Keith. I glared at him, and he quickly looked away. "Emily, you managed to marry a rich future company president, and you got conceited. That's why I took him from you. You always do this, Emily." It hit me hard. "You've been doing this to me since high school, haven't you? Every time I had a boyfriend, Lois would steal them from me." The only time Lois didn't steal my boyfriend was with Keith, because she was already living with her boyfriend at the time. It was a shame, though. "Now," Lois said, "from now on, I'll be with Keith and become the future president's wife. So, break up with him." I was done. "Fine, you can have Keith. I'll divorce him." At that point, I didn't care about anything. When I decided to marry Keith, I had no idea he was the son of the company president. He had worked at a regional branch and then moved to headquarters, where I worked. Keith was smart, friendly, and quickly connected with everyone. I started to have feelings for him, and we began dating. Eventually, he proposed, and I happily accepted. I didn't find out his father was the president of the company until I visited his parents' house. It was a huge surprise. Keith said, "Promise me you won't come back later, begging for a divorce." I replied, "I won't do that." "You're sure you want to leave me?" "Yes, I am. If you leave me, no man will marry a workaholic like you. You know that, right?" I told him, "I can live my life however I want, on my own, but for today, please just say goodbye to Mom properly." Lois and Keith exchanged smirks, like they had won. My relatives watched with raised eyebrows, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm really sorry for showing such an unpleasant scene," I said, apologizing to my relatives. But then I heard Lois whisper, "You're always playing the good girl. I hate that about you." I had put up with so much, because she was my little sister, but I had had enough. I decided I was done considering her my sister. I was getting divorced from Keith and losing my family. All that was left was to prepare myself for that. I bit my lower lip hard. 2 weeks later, I had moved out of the apartment and into a new condo near my office. I even put my parents' house up for sale. There was nothing left. Lois moved in with Keith, and Keith and I had already completed our divorce papers and filed them. I'm sure Lois and Keith were happily starting their new life together. I smiled at my mother's portrait. The revenge begins now. Watch over me, Mom, I thought, picturing what would happen next. The next day, at work, I had a lot of voicemail messages on my phone. One of them was from Keith. "What's going on? We're divorced, right? Why do I have to pay $30,000? Anticipating that they might come to my new place, I decided to meet them at a local diner. As soon as we started talking, Keith was yelling, I got a document from a lawyer. What's this all about? We're already divorced, right? I was confused. Exactly. I don't understand either. I had asked a lawyer to claim $40,000 from Keith as my share of the property and $30,000 from Lois to cover her part of our mother's medical expenses. The documents must have arrived at their place, and they should have expected it, but they probably didn't. I was getting frustrated. You just need to pay what you owe, I said. That's not fair, Keith protested. Listen, don't think you can get away with what you've done. I've suffered a lot because of this. Should I sue you for emotional distress as well? Emotional distress? Keith muttered. You cheated, that's a fact, so pay up. They went quiet for a moment, probably realizing they couldn't argue with the law. Then, Lois finally spoke up, looking down at me. So, Emily, you're just after the money, huh? Fine, I'll let Keith pay. If I borrow money from Dad, we can easily get the $70,000. Keith, I know you don't have any savings. Lois added, Keith will be the president soon, then he'll be rich. It's just a bit of patience. Oh, Lois, you're after the money too, aren't you? No, I have plenty of love, she said. Dad has been staying for a long time, and he'll retire when he turns 65. So, in 2 years, I'll be the president's wife. Keith said, Really? It'd be great if you could really become the president. I'm definitely going to become one. I'm the only son, Keith replied. I couldn't hold it in anymore. I burst out laughing. You can't be serious, I said, laughing. I can't believe this, I heard Lois whisper. Has she lost it? But the real stage of my revenge was just beginning. I said, Keith, you've been missing work for a long time, saying it's because of the family funeral, right? Well, my mother-in-law is family too. That's true, but the company knows what you've actually been doing. Keith looked confused. You didn't know? Your father was kind enough to attend Mom's funeral. I didn't tell you this, but I had to inform the company and your father that you lied about taking family leave for caregiving, and instead, you went off to Hawaii with your mistress. Keith froze. You never did any caregiving at all. You have the gall to act so brazenly. You've even been off work with Lois during your business trips, haven't you? I reported that too. How did you find out? Keith asked, shocked. Lois has been posting photos on social media, showing where and when she went out, and there were a few pictures with you in them. How shocking, huh? Keith was stunned. You knew about my social media? I smiled. It's the same account you had back when you were in high school. Of course, I knew. Lois looked uncomfortable, and Keith was shocked by my words. Hey, is it true that Dad knows everything? Keith asked. I replied, just like my mother was family to you, your father considered her family too. Of course, he would know about the family funeral, because it had to be reported to the company. Even after the funeral, he cared about me and contacted me several times. I reported everything to him, and he's very angry. He also said he has no intention of making you the next president. Keith was stunned. But I'm his son. I continued, he said he doesn't remember ever saying that. Our company follows the principle of merit, not hereditary succession. He told me to tell you that he doesn't need a son who acts so disloyally. I smiled quietly as their faces turned pale. And by the way, I'm becoming the president starting next month. Keith and Lois were both shocked. What? Keith said, in disbelief. I just received the official notice from the president and my superiors. I've been appointed as the new president. There's no way they'll let you become president. Keith frantically called his father, and Lois watched anxiously. Lois whispered, So, Emily is becoming the president? If I'd known that, I wouldn't have stolen you from her. But you said you loved me, including my money. I couldn't stand their squabbling, so I stood up and said, If you want to fight, do it somewhere else. Oh, and I'll be expecting the payment, thanks. As I turned to leave, I heard them begging, Please don't abandon me. Please support me, sis. I ignored them, sidestepping their desperate attempts for help, and left the place. Afterward, the two of them ended up getting a divorce. My ex-husband, Keith, was demoted by his father and eventually quit his job. Now, he works part-time jobs every day to pay off what he owes me. Lois started working in a bar at night. She did well at first, but was tricked by a bad man and ended up in a terrible situation. As for me, I became the president, though it's for a small company that's a tenant in the main company's building. It's a subsidiary in the caregiving industry, which was created based on a proposal I submitted while I was on caregiving leave. The caregiving business is expected to grow, and I'm expected to do well. I'll do my best from now on.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. The scene unfolded in front of me like a cruel nightmare. My husband Leo embraced another woman, his arm wrapped around her waist as they stood together in the hospital lobby. "Sarah, you gave me the greatest gift. Thank you for making me a father," Leo whispered, his voice thick with emotion. I felt sick to my stomach. Sarah, my once best friend, smiled up at him, her eyes shining. "Leo, we've been through a lot. Let's cherish every moment with our son." Tears streamed down my face as I watched them from my hidden vantage, phone recording the devastating scene. How could Leo do this to me? To our marriage? I thought we were happy, but his lies had unraveled our life together. Anger and betrayal burned through me like wildfire. In that moment, I knew my life would never be the same. Leo had to pay for what he'd done. I would make sure of it. As they walked away, oblivious to my presence, I steeled my resolve. No more tears, no more playing the victim. It was time for revenge. I slipped away, mind already racing with possibilities. Leo thought he could deceive me, but he had no idea what I was capable of. I would expose his web of lies, piece by devastating piece, until he lost everything he held dear. This was just the beginning. Leo's world was about to come crashing down around him, all because of his own deceitful actions. And I would be the one to make it happen, no matter what it took. After that night at the hospital, my world shattered into a million pieces. The man I loved, the man I trusted with my heart, had betrayed me in the cruelest way imaginable. But I refused to be the victim anymore. As the days passed, I meticulously planned my next steps. First, I hired a private investigator to gather concrete evidence of Leo's affairs. I needed proof, irrefutable proof that would leave no room for doubt or denial. John Maxwell, a seasoned professional, took on the case. Within weeks, he had compiled a damning file, photos, recordings, even DNA tests confirming Leo's infidelity with multiple women over the years. "Are you sure you want to go through with this, Mrs. Barnes?" John asked, his brow furrowed with concern. This could get ugly. I met his gaze, my resolve unwavering. Leo brought this upon himself. It's time he faced the consequences of his actions. With the evidence in hand, I began organizing a family gathering, inviting our closest relatives to our home under the guise of a casual get-together. Little did they know the truth that awaited them. Leo eyed me suspiciously as our living room filled with people. "Lisa, what's happening? Why are there so many people here?" I forced a smile, my calm exterior masking the storm raging within. "It's family, Leo. They're here for you." His brow creased, confusion etched across his features. But I knew the truth would come out soon enough, and when it did, his world would crumble. As our guests settled in, I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was to come. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when Leo's lies would be exposed for all to see. "Everyone, thank you for coming," I began, my voice steady and unwavering. "Tonight, we're not just here for a casual gathering. We're here to celebrate new beginnings." Leo's eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering in their depths. But it was too late to turn back now. The truth was about to be unleashed, and there would be no stopping it. As I addressed our gathered family members, Leo's eyes narrowed with suspicion. He could sense that something was amiss, but he couldn't begin to fathom the truth that was about to unfold. "Leo, my dear husband," I said, my voice laced with false sweetness. "Today, we celebrate new beginnings. Sit down. It's important." He hesitated for a moment, searching my face for any hint of what was to come, but I remained impassive, my expression betraying nothing of the storm raging within. Slowly, he lowered himself onto the couch, his gaze flickering between me and our relatives. The tension in the room was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. "Lisa, what's going on?" he asked, his brow furrowed with unease. I couldn't help but revel in his discomfort, knowing that the truth would soon shatter his world into pieces. "Patience, Leo," I replied, my tone even and controlled. "All will be revealed in due time." As our family watched on in silent confusion, I stepped forward, clutching the file of evidence in my hand. With a flick of my wrist, I scattered the photos across the coffee table, laying bare Leo's betrayal for all to see. Gasps of shock and outrage rippled through the room as the incriminating images came into focus. Leo's face drained of color, his eyes wide with dawning horror. "Leo, how could you?" his mother cried, her voice trembling with disappointment. "How could you do this to Lisa, to our family?" For a moment, Leo seemed to shrink under the weight of their collective judgment. But then, his expression hardened, and a flicker of defiance ignited in his eyes. "Lisa, what is the meaning of this?" he demanded, his voice laced with anger. "Are you trying to turn our family against me?" I met his gaze unflinchingly, my own fury burning like a wildfire within. "I'm not the one who turned against our family, Leo. You did that when you decided to betray me with your lies and infidelity." The room fell silent, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. Leo's jaw clenched, but he said nothing, his eyes darting from face to face as he took in the collective disgust and disappointment etched onto the features of our loved ones. In that moment, I knew the battle lines had been drawn. Leo's lies had been exposed, and there was no turning back. It was time for him to face the consequences of his actions, no matter how painful or devastating they might be. The room was thick with tension as the damning photos lay scattered across the coffee table. Leo's eyes darted from face to face, taking in the expressions of shock and disgust etched onto the features of our loved ones. "Lisa, how did you find out about this?" my sister Anna asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. "Does everyone know about Leo's affairs?" I turned to her, my gaze unwavering. "I saw him, Anna, at the hospital with his mistress Sarah and their newborn son." A collective gasp rippled through the room, and I saw Leo flinch as if he had been struck. "Is this true, Leo?" his father demanded, his voice shaking with anger. "Have you been carrying on an affair behind Lisa's back?" Leo's shoulders slumped, and for a moment he looked utterly defeated. But then a spark of defiance flared in his eyes, and his jaw clenched stubbornly. "Lisa couldn't give me a child," he spat, his words laced with venom. "If she hadn't been unable to conceive, I wouldn't have needed someone else. This is her fault." A deafening silence fell over the room, broken only by the sound of my mother-in-law's choked sob. I stared at Leo in disbelief, my heart shattering all over again at his cruel words. "How dare you?" my father-in-law growled, his face contorted with rage. "How dare you blame Lisa for your own despicable actions?" He turned to me, his expression softening with regret and sorrow. "Lisa, my dear, please accept our deepest apologies. We had no idea the depths of Leo's betrayal." Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. Not in front of Leo, not after everything he had done. "I loved you, Leo," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I gave you everything, and you threw it all away for a few cheap affairs." Leo opened his mouth as if to speak, but his father cut him off with a sharp gesture. "Enough," he spat. "You've disgraced this family and betrayed the trust of our closest relatives. As of this moment, you are no longer welcome in this house or in our lives." Leo's face drained of color, and he stared at his father in shock. "Dad, you can't mean that. This is my home, my family." "Not anymore," his mother said, her voice trembling but resolute. "You've made your choices, Leo, and now you must live with the consequences." As Leo's protests fell on deaf ears, I couldn't help but feel a twisted sense of satisfaction. After all the pain and heartbreak he had caused, he was finally getting what he deserved. The battle was far from over, but in that moment I knew I had won a crucial victory. Leo's lies had been exposed, and his world was crumbling around him, all because of his own selfish actions. And as I looked around at the faces of my loved ones, I knew that no matter what happened next, I wouldn't be facing it alone. The aftermath of Leo's exposure was like a bomb going off in our family. As the shock waves rippled through the room, he desperately tried to cling to any shred of support or sympathy. "You can't seriously be siding with her," he said, gesturing wildly at me. "After everything we've been through together, you're just going to turn your backs on me?" My father-in-law fixed him with a steely glare. "We're not the ones who turned our backs, Leo. You did that the moment you decided to betray Lisa and this family." Leo's mouth opened and closed like a gasping fish, his eyes darting around the room in search of an ally. But he found none, only the looks of disgust and disappointment etched onto the faces of our loved ones. "You've made your choices, Leo," my mother-in-law said, her voice trembling with barely contained emotion. "And now you must live with the consequences." Leo's gaze finally settled on me, his eyes blazing with a mixture of anger and desperation. "Lisa, please," he pleaded. "We can work through this. We can make it right." I met his gaze, feeling nothing but a hollow emptiness where my love for him had once resided. "It's too late for that, Leo. You had your chance, and you threw it away for your selfish desires." He opened his mouth to protest, but I held up a hand, cutting him off. "Don't bother. I'm done listening to your lies and excuses." With a sharp nod, I pulled out a thick envelope from my purse and slid it across the coffee table towards him. "These are the divorce papers. It's over." Leo's face drained of color as he stared at the envelope, his hands trembling. For a moment, he looked like a broken man, utterly defeated by the weight of his own actions. But then, a spark of defiance flared in his eyes and he lifted his chin defiantly. "Fine," he spat. "If that's how you want to play it, then so be it, but don't come crawling back to me when you realize your mistake." I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh at his bravado. Even after everything, he still couldn't bring himself to take responsibility for his actions. "Don't worry, Leo," I said, my voice cold and cutting. "I have no intention of ever coming back to you. You've made your bed and now you can lie in it, alone." With those words, I turned and walked away, leaving him to face the consequences of his choices. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, I knew that I had won a crucial victory. Leo's lies and betrayal had cost him everything: his family, his home, and ultimately his marriage. And as I stepped out into the night, I couldn't help but feel a sense of grim satisfaction. Karma, it seemed, had finally caught up with Leo Barnes. Just when I thought the night couldn't get any more emotionally charged, the doorbell rang. My heart dropped into my stomach as I exchanged a look with my sister Anna. We both knew who it was. Sure enough, when I opened the door, there stood Sarah, Leo's mistress and the mother of his illegitimate child, cradled in her arms. She looked surprised to see the house filled with our family members, their faces etched with varying degrees of shock and outrage. "Lisa, Sarah began, her voice trailing off as she took in the tense atmosphere. Her eyes landed on Leo, hunched over on the couch, and a flicker of concern crossed her features. "What's going on?" I felt a surge of bitter satisfaction at the confusion written across her face. Little did she know her world was about to come crashing down around her, just as mine had. "Sarah, come in," I said, my voice deceptively calm. "You're just in time for the main event." She frowned, but stepped inside, her gaze flickering nervously between Leo and the rest of our family. As she passed by me, I caught a whiff of her perfume, the same scent that had lingered on Leo's clothes so many times before. A wave of nausea rolled through me, but I pushed it down, determined to see this through to the bitter end. "Leo," I said, addressing him directly, "perhaps you'd like to introduce your son to your family." He looked up at me, his eyes wide and panicked, but I held his gaze unflinchingly. "Lisa, I can explain," he started, but I cut him off with a sharp shake of my head. "Save it, Leo. The truth is out, and there's no more hiding from it." Turning to Sarah, I fixed her with a steely glare. "Did you know, Sarah, that Leo has been carrying on affairs with multiple women over the years? That your precious little family was built on a foundation of lies and deceit?" Sarah's face drained of color, and she clutched her baby closer to her chest protectively. "Leo, is this true?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Leo opened his mouth, but no words came out. In that moment, the weight of his betrayal seemed to crush him, leaving him utterly speechless. "See for yourself," I said, gesturing to the scattered photographs and evidence that had already torn our family apart. "Leo's been lying to us all, you included." Sarah's gaze landed on the damning photos, and a choked sob escaped her lips. "Oh my God," she breathed, her eyes filling with tears. "How could you, Leo? How could you do this to us?" Leo's face crumpled with remorse, but it was too little, too late. The damage had been done, and there was no going back. As Sarah dissolved into tears, clutching her child to her chest, I felt a strange sense of vindication wash over me. Leo's web of lies had finally caught up to him, and he was left to face the consequences of his actions, alone. The room was deathly silent, save for Sarah's muffled sobs as she clutched her newborn son to her chest. Leo stood frozen, his face a mask of anguish and guilt, as the weight of his lies finally came crashing down upon him. "Sarah, he began, his voice cracking with emotion. "I never meant to hurt you. I love you and our son. You have to believe me." Sarah lifted her head, her eyes blazing with a mixture of heartbreak and fury. "How can I believe anything you say, Leo? You've been lying to me this entire time, carrying on affairs with God knows how many other women." Leo flinched as if he'd been struck, but Sarah wasn't finished. "Was any of it real?" she demanded, her voice rising in pitch. "Or was I just another notch on your bedpost, another conquest to stroke your ego?" Leo shook his head vehemently, his eyes pleading with her to understand. "No, Sarah, it wasn't like that. You and our son, you're everything to me. We can get past this, I swear. Just give me another chance." A bitter laugh escaped Sarah's lips, and she shook her head in disbelief. "Another chance? After all the lies, the betrayal? How can I ever trust you again, Leo?" Leo opened his mouth to respond, but I beat him to it, stepping forward with the thick envelope clutched in my hand. "You don't have to trust him, Sarah," I said, my voice steely with resolve, "because our marriage is over." Leo's gaze snapped to me, his eyes widening in shock as I held out the divorce papers towards him. "Lisa, you can't be serious," he breathed, his voice tinged with desperation. But I was deadly serious, and he could see it in my eyes. "I am serious, Leo," I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. "You've lied and cheated your way through our entire marriage, and I'm done. It's over." Leo's face crumpled, and for a moment I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "Lisa, please," he pleaded, his voice thick with emotion. "I love you. We can work through this, I swear." But I shook my head, my resolve unwavering. "No, Leo. You had your chance, and you blew it. Now it's time for you to face the consequences of your actions." With trembling hands, Leo reached out and took the divorce papers from me, his gaze lingering on mine for a long moment. But there was no changing my mind. Not this time. As Leo clutched the papers to his chest, his shoulders slumped in defeat, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. This chapter of my life was closing, and a new one was about to begin. One without Leo's lies and betrayal weighing me down. Turning to Sarah, I met her gaze, seeing the same determination reflected in her eyes. "Sarah," I said, my voice soft but firm, "I know you're hurting, but you don't have to go through this alone. We'll get through this together, for the sake of your son." Sarah nodded, a flicker of gratitude shining through her tears, and in that moment I knew that no matter what came next, I would be okay. Leo had made his choices, and now it was time for him to live with them. Alone. Years have passed since that fateful night when Leo's web of lies unraveled before our eyes. As I sit here reflecting on the chain of events that upended my life, I can't help but feel a sense of gratitude for the person I've become. In the aftermath of the divorce, I'll admit there were times when I wasn't sure I'd make it through. The pain of Leo's betrayal cut deeper than any wound, leaving me feeling hollow and adrift. But I refused to let his actions define me. With the support of my family and friends, I slowly but surely pieced my life back together. I threw myself into my career, channeling my energy into something positive and fulfilling. And as the days turned into months, the ache in my heart began to fade, replaced by a newfound sense of strength and resilience. As for Leo, well, let's just say karma has a way of catching up with people like him. His lies and infidelities cost him everything. His business, his fortune, even his so-called true love. Sarah eventually walked away, unable to trust him after his repeated betrayals. These days, I hear whispers of Leo drowning in legal troubles and financial ruin, a mere shadow of the man he once was. And you know what? I don't feel an ounce of pity for him. He made his bed, and now he has to lie in it, alone. But I'm not alone. Not anymore. I've built a life for myself that I can be proud of, surrounded by people who truly care about me. My friends have become my chosen family, always there to lift me up when I need it most. And then there's Sarah. After everything that happened, you'd think we'd never want to speak to each other again. But in a strange twist of fate, we found solace in our shared pain, bonding over the betrayal we both suffered at Leo's hands. Just last week, she reached out to me, asking if we could meet for coffee. I'll admit, I was hesitant at first, but something told me to give her a chance. "Lisa, I'll never be able to apologize enough for what happened," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. but I want you to know how truly sorry I am for the role I played in all of this." As I looked at her, cradling her son in her arms, I saw a woman who had been through hell and back, just like me. And in that moment, I knew that holding on to anger and resentment would only poison my own soul. "Sarah," I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. "We were both victims of Leo's lies, but we don't have to let his actions define us anymore. It's time to move forward, for both of our sakes." She nodded, a grateful smile spreading across her face as we embraced, two survivors bonded by our shared experience. These days I walk with my head held high, confident in the person I've become. The road hasn't been easy, but I've emerged from the ashes of my past, stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. Leo may have tried to break me, but in the end, his betrayal only served to reveal the depths of my own inner strength. And as I step boldly into the future, I know that no matter what lies ahead, I'll be ready to face it head on, leaving the pain and heartbreak of the past behind me forever. "I can't believe you, Josh. After everything, you're just throwing us away for her? You haven't kept me happy in years, Fiona. Stop acting surprised. You knew this was coming." The words hit me like a freight train. We stood in our cozy kitchen, the sink still filled with unwashed dishes from breakfast. Josh's eyes were cold, a reflection of the man I no longer recognized. My hands trembled as I gripped the counter, trying to process his indifference. "Years? You're saying this has been going on for years?" "Yes, and you didn't even notice. I've been miserable, Fiona. We both have. This is for the best." His tone was flat, as if he were discussing the weather. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a manila envelope, placing it on the table with a thud. "What's that?" I demanded, my voice cracking. "Divorce papers," he replied, leaning back casually. "And an alimony agreement. I've signed everything. Just need your signature." I stared at the papers, bile rising in my throat. "You planned this, all of this. While I was working to support us, you were playing house with her." Josh shrugged. "I found happiness with Katie, something you couldn't give me." Fury surged within me. "I was the one keeping this family afloat while you pretended to day trade. I worked late hours, missed events for Claire because you couldn't be bothered to get a real job." The hurt was overwhelming. "Let's not make this harder than it is, Fiona. Just sign the papers. You'll get your fair share." "Fair share?" I scoffed. "You think this is fair?" I flipped open the envelope, my eyes quickly scanning the pages. The alimony agreement heavily favored Josh, minimizing his financial responsibilities. I felt like I was suffocating. He took a step closer. "It's done. I'm moving in with Katie, and you can keep the house." "You think you can just walk away like this, without any consequences?" Josh returned my stare, his expression unyielding. "There are no consequences because I'm not wrong. You've known this was over for a long time." My fury mixed with the deep ache of betrayal. "You're a coward, Josh. Hiding behind your lies and deceit. What do you think Claire will say when she finds out? She already warned me about you." He shrugged again. "She'll understand eventually. Kids adapt. I'm done here, Fiona." With those callous words, he walked out, leaving me standing amidst shattered dreams and broken trust. I crumpled to the floor, my eyes welling with tears as I clutched the unsigned papers. How had my life come to this? Minutes, maybe hours, passed before I mustered the strength to stand. I needed to leave this place, find solace, and regroup. I grabbed my coat and keys and stumbled out the door, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. My destination was clear, my mother's house, the only refuge I had left. I sped down the highway, the cold night air seeping through the cracks of my old car. I couldn't shake the image of Josh's smug face out of my mind. How could I have been so blind? The streetlights blurred past as tears clouded my vision, but I pressed on. I would not break down now. By the time I reached my mother's house, my emotions were teetering on the brink. I parked and walked the short pathway to the front door, the gravel crunching under my feet, offering little comfort. Before I could knock, the door swung open, revealing my mother, Emily, looking concerned. "Fiona, what's wrong?" she asked, her voice laced with worry. "It's Josh," I managed to choke out as I stepped inside. "He's been having an affair, and he just handed me divorce papers." My mother's face grew stern. "That son of a—" I knew something wasn't right with him. Come in, let's get you settled." I walked to the living room and slumped onto the couch, the familiar scent of vanilla and lavender helping to calm my racing heart. Emily sat beside me and held my hands. "What happened?" she asked softly. Between sobs, I recounted the evening's events. My mother listened intently, rage brewing beneath her calm exterior. "You need to fight this, Fiona. You can't let him walk all over you." "I don't even know where to start," I admitted, burying my face in my hands. "We'll figure it out. You're not alone. Claire will be here soon," she said. As if on cue, the door opened and Claire rushed in, her eyes wide with concern. "Mom, I got your message. What's going on?" I explained everything again. Claire's expression shifted from shock to anger. I knew he was a snake. "Remember I warned you about those late nights and business trips? He's been playing you, Mom." "I don't know how I let this happen," I confessed, feeling my strength wane. Claire knelt beside me and looked straight into my eyes. "It's not your fault, Mom. Josh is manipulative. He knew exactly what he was doing to keep you in the dark." "You're right," I said, starting to regain my composure. "I can't let him get away with this. But what can we do?" "We're going to fight back. First, we need to get all our facts straight," Clara said. "Was there anything unusual you noticed about his behavior, money movements, anything?" "Now that you mention it, there were times when the bank accounts didn't quite add up. I thought he was just bad at managing money," I realized. "We'll get to the bottom of it. Stay here for now," Claire advised. "We'll gather information, talk to a lawyer. We have to be smart about this." I nodded, feeling the fire within reignite. I couldn't let Josh think he'd won, not when everything was at stake. With Claire and Emily by my side, I knew I could find the strength to face him head-on. The battle had only just begun. The next morning, I woke up with a renewed sense of purpose. Claire had already brewed a pot of coffee and was sipping from her mug at the kitchen table. "Morning, Mom." She greeted me, sliding a cup towards me. "We need to talk to Grandpa Walter." "Josh's dad?" I asked, skeptical. "Why would he help us?" Claire leaned forward, her eyes sharp. "Grandpa Walter helped you and Dad get this house, remember? He won't be thrilled to learn Josh has been messing around and planning this deceit." Emily joined us, her presence as comforting as ever. "Claire's right, Fiona. Walter might be the ally you need." I hesitated, but then nodded. "All right, but how do we approach him?" That afternoon we drove to Walter's house. The large oak door soon opened to reveal Walter, still spry for his 75 years. He squinted at us, confused but welcoming. "Fiona, Claire, what brings you here?" I glanced at Claire, who gave me a reassuring nod. "Walter, can we talk inside?" He led us into his study, filled with old books and family photos. We sat down, and as I began to explain, Walter's face shifted from confusion to simmering anger. "He's been having an affair, and he wants a divorce," I finished, my voice trembling despite my determination to remain strong. Walter's jaw tightened. That boy never learns. This is worse than when his mother left, and he's been manipulating the finances too? "Yes," Claire jumped in. "Mom's been the one working and supporting the family. Josh has been wasting money while pretending to contribute." Walter slammed his hand on the table. "I won't stand for this. He's disgraced our family for the last time. What do you need from me?" "We need to confront him, but we need evidence," I said. "I can't rely on just my word against his." Walter nodded solemnly. "All right, I've got some connections. We'll gather what we need." A plan began forming in my mind, details coming together piece by piece. Walter's influence would be a game changer. He pulled out his phone and started making calls. His determined expression was a comfort, a promise that I wasn't alone in this fight. As we left Walter's house, I felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. Claire squeezed my hand. "We're going to get through this, Mom. Josh's days of getting away with everything are over." "I know," I replied, my voice steadier than it had been in weeks. "With Grandpa Walter on our side, we stand a real chance." We drove back to my mother's house in silence, each of us lost in our thoughts, but united in our mission. The battle lines were drawn, and for the first time in a long while, I felt the fire of determination coursing through me. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life and ensuring that Josh faced the consequences of his actions. The fight was only beginning, but I was ready to see it through. The following week, we arranged a meeting at my mother's house. Walter arrived first, his determined expression setting the tone for the evening. Claire and I prepared coffee, anticipating the confrontation ahead. Josh showed up shortly after, walking in with the same arrogant swagger that had become all too familiar. Katie was right behind him, placing a manicured hand on his arm. My mother greeted them coolly, leading them to the living room where we all waited. "What's this about?" Josh asked, glancing around the room suspiciously. "Sit down, son," Walter commanded, his voice brooking no argument. Josh hesitated, but the authority in Walter's tone left him no choice. They both sat, Katie looking a bit more uncertain now. Walter leaned forward, his eyes locking onto Josh's. "Explain yourself." Josh blinked, struggling to maintain his composure. "What do you mean, Dad?" "Don't play dumb," Walter continued, his voice steady. "Fiona has told me everything. Your affair, your financial scheming, the divorce papers, all of it." Josh's confidence faltered. "It's not like that, Dad. Fiona's just exaggerating." "No," I interjected, holding up the divorce papers he had shoved at me. "You planned this, Josh. You've been siphoning money, living off my hard work while planning your exit." Katie shifted uncomfortably, her gaze flicking between us. Claire then flipped open a folder she'd prepared, revealing bank statements with suspicious transactions. "These are the accounts you've been hiding," Claire said. "We found transactions that don't add up, and now we know why. You've been funding your little side projects." Josh's face turned red with anger. "You don't know what you're talking about. Those are business expenses." Walter's voice cut through the tension. "Enough, Josh. You've betrayed your family, both financially and morally." He turned toward Katie. "And as for you, young lady, do you even realize what you've gotten yourself into?" Katie's face paled as she stammered. I didn't know the extent." Walter's eyes never left Josh. "You will vacate the family home immediately. Fiona and Claire deserve better." "You can't do this," Josh protested, his facade crumbling. "You can't just throw me out." "I can, and I will," Walter replied coldly. "You've left me no choice. Fiona supported this family while you wasted her efforts. If you don't leave, I'll involve the authorities, and trust me, they'll find plenty to charge you with." Josh stood up, his shoulders sagging in defeat. "You'll regret this," he spat, but his words lacked power. "I doubt it," I said, standing tall. "This is over, Josh. You lost." Katie pulled at his arm, her own facade cracking. "Let's go. We can figure this out later." As they left, the door closing with a finality, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Walter turned to me, his expression softening. "You did well, Fiona. Now it's time to build a new future." I nodded, gratitude and determination filling me. With my family by my side, I knew I could face whatever came next. The battle wasn't fully won, but the immediate threat was gone. Walter's backing had made sure of that. Josh had vacated the house, leaving us to pick up the pieces of a life shattered by his betrayal. A few days later, I stood in my new condo. It was smaller, but it was mine. Claire helped me unpack, her presence a constant source of strength. "It's cozy," she commented, setting a stack of plates in the kitchen cabinet. "Yeah, it is," I agreed, feeling a sense of relief for the first time in months. "Thank you for everything, Claire. I couldn't have done any of this without you." She smiled. "We're in this together, Mom. You don't have to thank me. Let's just focus on moving forward, okay?" Just then, my phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from Josh. "You'll pay for this. You've ruined everything." I handed the phone to Claire, my hand shaking. "He's just trying to rattle you," she said, half deleting the message. "Ignore him. He's lost." We spent the rest of the day setting up my new home. By evening, it felt almost comfortable. Exhausted, we collapsed on the couch. "What's our next step?" I asked, knowing Claire already had a plan. "We need to talk to a lawyer," she said. "We have to protect what's yours and make sure he doesn't come after any more of your money." I nodded. "I'll call first thing in the morning." The next day, we visited the law offices of Miss Harper, a fierce attorney recommended by Walter. As we sat in her office, I couldn't help but feel a bit anxious, but Claire's steady presence grounded me. "Fiona, Claire, nice to meet you," Miss Harper said as she entered, shaking our hands. Walter filled me in on the situation. "It's a mess, but it's not insurmountable. We'll start with financial investigations." "We've already found some suspicious transactions," Claire said, handing over the folder. "This could be a starting point." Miss Harper reviewed the documents, nodding thoughtfully. "Good work. We'll subpoena the bank records and dig deeper. We'll also prepare a lawsuit to ensure a fair division of assets." "Thank you," I said, feeling a mix of relief and determination. As we left the office, Claire turned to me. "This is going to be a fight, but we're on the right path." "I know," I replied, "and I'm ready." That evening, back at my condo, we had a quiet dinner together. Claire's phone buzzed with a new message from Walter, updating us on some information he'd uncovered about Josh's financial loopholes. "We're closing in," Claire commented, her tone resolute. I looked around my new home, feeling a growing sense of peace. "We'll get through this," I said, "and we'll come out stronger." As we finished dinner, I realized we were not just surviving, we were rebuilding. With every step, we were moving closer to justice and away from the shadows of the past. The future was uncertain, but we were no longer trapped. We were free to forge our own path, one step at a time. The lawsuit was filed, and our strategic legal battle began. Claire and I spent many nights poring over documents while Miss Harper prepared our case. Josh's deceit had to be exposed, and we were determined to hold him accountable. One evening, Claire and I sat in our small living room sorting through more paperwork when the phone rang. Claire answered, her eyes widening as she listened. "Yes, that would be incredibly helpful. Thank you so much," she said before hanging up. "Mom, that was one of Josh's former colleagues. He's willing to testify about some unethical trading practices Josh was involved in." My heart pounded with anticipation. That's the break we needed. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. We met with Miss Harper to discuss our strategy, and the revelations kept coming. More witnesses stepped forward, willing to share their stories about Josh's past affairs and dubious financial actions. Katie, now disenchanted with Josh, also agreed to testify. During a preparation session, she looked at me with regret. "I had no idea how deep his deceit went," she confessed. "I'm sorry, Fiona." "Thank you for speaking up," I replied, and for the first time, I felt a hint of empathy towards her. The day of the court proceedings finally arrived. I walked into the courtroom, flanked by Claire and Miss Harper, my resolve steeled by their presence. Josh sat at the defendant's table, fidgeting visibly. His once confident demeanor had crumbled. As the trial commenced, the evidence against Josh mounted. Witness after witness painted a picture of a man driven by selfishness and greed. The former colleague detailed Josh's manipulation of trades, revealing hidden bank accounts and wealth he'd stashed away. Katie's testimony was the most damning. She described how Josh had used her as a pawn in his scheme, thinking he could manipulate her emotions as easily as he manipulated his finances. "He promised me a life filled with wealth," Katie said, her voice shaky yet determined, "but it was all built on lies." Josh's face turned ashen. He tried to interrupt, but the judge silenced him. "Mr. Carter, you will have your turn to speak." Walter then took the stand, his presence commanding respect. He spoke with passion, detailing how Josh's betrayal had impacted the entire family. He used Fiona's trust and my support for his own gain. It's vital that justice is served. As Walter finished, the courtroom fell silent. The judge reviewed the evidence and testimonies, her expressions stern. In the end, the verdict was clear. Josh was ordered to pay significant reparations, including long-term alimony to me. The judgment left him practically penniless, his reputation in utter ruins. As we left the courtroom, a sense of overwhelming relief washed over me. Claire hugged me tightly, her eyes shining with pride. "You did it, Mom. Justice was served." "Yes," I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. "We did it together." We walked out of the courthouse, the weight of the past lifted off my shoulders. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt truly free. With Claire and my family by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever the future held. The courtroom was silent, the tension thick as the judge prepared to deliver her verdict. I held my breath, clutching Claire's hand for support. Across the room, Josh sat with a hollow expression, knowing that this moment could determine his fate. After reviewing the evidence and the testimonies, it is clear that Mr. Carter's actions were not only deceitful, but malicious, the judge began. His financial manipulations and infidelity have deeply impacted his family, particularly Mrs. Carter. I squeezed Claire's hand tighter, feeling a surge of relief as the judge continued. Mr. Carter is hereby ordered to pay substantial reparations, including long-term alimony to Mrs. Carter. Furthermore, any hidden assets revealed during this investigation will be accounted for and distributed fairly. Josh's face turned ashen. He opened his mouth to protest, but the judge held up her hand. "Mr. Carter, your actions have consequences. This court will ensure that justice is served." With the gavel's final strike, it was over. We had won. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. Claire hugged me tightly, her eyes brimming with pride. "Mom, we did it." "Yes, we did," I replied, my voice thick with emotion. "We really did." Walter approached us, his expression one of quiet satisfaction. "You showed incredible strength, Fiona. I'm proud of you." "Thank you, Walter. I couldn't have done it without your support." As we made our way back home, the sense of victory was tempered by the reality of what lay ahead. Rebuilding my life from scratch wouldn't be easy, but I was determined. I was free, and that was what mattered most. Back at the condo, we gathered around the kitchen table, the atmosphere lighter than it had been in months. Emily joined us, bringing out a bottle of champagne. "We need to celebrate," she declared, popping the cork. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," we echoed, clinking our glasses together. As the evening wore on, plans for the future began to take shape. Claire and I discussed the next steps for ensuring my financial security, while Walter offered his continued assistance. "You're stronger than you know, Fiona," Walter said. "This is just the beginning." I smiled, feeling a renewed sense of determination. I'm ready for whatever comes next. The following weeks were a blur of activity. We settled into a routine, each day bringing new challenges and triumphs. Walter's support remained steadfast, and Emily's wisdom provided comfort during tough moments. One evening, as we sat down for dinner, Claire turned to me. "Mom, I've been thinking. There's a job opening at my firm that you'd be perfect for. It's a step up from your old position, and I know you'd excel." I considered her words, the idea sparking excitement. "I'll look into it. It's time to take control of my life and my career." As the days turned into weeks, I applied for the job and was soon invited for an interview. The process was challenging, but I felt more prepared than ever. This was my chance to start anew, to build a future free from Josh's shadow. Standing before the interview panel, I spoke with confidence, my past experiences fueling my determination. By the time I walked out, I knew I had done my best. A few days later, I received the call. "Congratulations, Fiona. We'd like to offer you the position." Tears of joy filled my eyes as I shared the news with Claire. "We did it," she said, beaming. "This is just the beginning, Mom." In that moment, I knew she was right. The future was bright, filled with endless possibilities. With my family by my side, I was ready to embrace whatever came next. The ashes of my past were behind me, and from them, I had found my strength. The weeks following my new job offer were filled with excitement, a bit of nervousness. Starting over in a new position at the age of 50 wasn't something I had planned, but it was a challenge I was ready to take on. On my first day, Claire offered to drive me to the office. "You're going to do great, Mom," she said, giving me a reassuring smile. "Thanks, Claire. I couldn't have done any of this without you." Walking into the office, I felt a mix of anxiety and determination. The staff welcomed me warmly, and I quickly felt at ease. It wasn't long before I found my rhythm, diving into projects and adjusting to my new role. That evening, back at the condo, Claire and I shared a celebratory dinner. "Here's to new beginnings," she toasted, a spark of pride in her eyes. "To new beginnings," I echoed, feeling a sense of accomplishment that I hadn't felt in years. In the midst of all the positive changes, my relationship with Walter grew stronger. He continued to visit, offering not just support, but genuine friendship. One afternoon, he and Emily sat on the patio, their laughter ringing through the house. "I can't believe how much joy they bring to each other," Claire observed, watching them with a smile. "It's like they found a second chance at love." "You're right," I agreed, feeling a warmth in my chest. "It's inspiring." That evening, Walter and I had a heart-to-heart conversation. "I want you to know, Fiona, that I'll always be here for you," he said, his voice steady and sincere. "And I appreciate everything you've done, Walter. Your support has meant the world to me." His eyes softened as he reached out to hold my hand. "Family sticks together. Remember that." With each passing day, I felt more and more settled in my new life. Claire and I had long conversations about our plans and the future. We discussed our hopes, dreams, and how far we'd come. One evening, as we sat on the couch, Claire turned to me. "Do you ever think about what we've accomplished, Mom, from where we were to now?" All the time. We've faced so much, but we've also built something new, something strong. We're survivors, Claire said, her eyes shining with pride. Yes, we are, I agreed. The months flew by, and soon it was time for my first performance review at work. I walked into my supervisor's office feeling confident. Fiona, I just want to say how impressed we are with your work. You've brought so much experience and dedication to the team. Thank you, I replied, feeling a swell of pride. I see a bright future for you here. Keep up the great work. As I left the office, I felt a sense of fulfillment. This was my fresh start, and I was making the most of it. Back at the condo, Claire and I celebrated the small victories. To new achievements, she toasted again, her smile radiant. To new achievements, I echoed, realizing that this journey was just beginning. The scars of the past had shaped me, but they didn't define me. With my family's love and support, I had found strength, hope, and a renewed sense of purpose. The future, once filled with uncertainty, now shimmered with endless possibilities, and I was ready to embrace it all. I stepped out of the bedroom, pulling my robe tighter as the chill morning air caressed my skin. The house was eerily quiet, not a single sound to be heard. Theo must have already left for work. Grabbing my coffee mug, I made my way downstairs, my slippered feet sliding across the hardwood floors. That's when I heard the unmistakable voices drifting in from the living room. Theo's deep baritone mingled with the higher, melodic tones of a woman's voice, one I immediately recognized as Dana's. A knot formed in my stomach as I crept closer, my curiosity piqued. "Can't keep doing this, Theo. It's not fair to Lena," Dana whispered, her words laced with remorse. My heart stopped. What did she mean by that? Theo sighed heavily. I know, but you know how much I love you, right? Leaving Lena, it's not that simple." Love her? Leaving me? The mug slipped from my trembling fingers, shattering against the floor with a deafening crash. I froze, panic seizing every fiber of my being. The voices ceased abruptly, followed by hurried footsteps and the slamming of the front door. Dana must have fled. I stood rooted to the spot, numb with shock and disbelief. How could this be happening? Tears stung my eyes as the weight of their words sank in. Theo appeared in the hallway, his expression a mask of guilt and fear. "Lena, you're home? I thought you were at work." "Don't," I warned, my voice quivering with barely contained rage. "Don't you dare try to explain this away." His shoulders sagged in resignation. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." I clenched my fists, fighting back the urge to scream, to lash out. "My husband, and my best friend. How could you betray me like this?" Theo opened his mouth, but I held up a hand, silencing him. "Save it. I don't want to hear your excuses." Brushing past him, I stormed upstairs, my mind a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. One thing was certain, I would get to the bottom of this, no matter what it took. And when I did, there would be hell to pay. I collapsed onto the bed, hot tears streaming down my face. How had everything fallen apart so quickly? Just hours ago, my life had seemed perfectly normal. A loving marriage, a rewarding career, an amazing best friend. Now it felt like my entire world was crumbling. Theo and I had been together for nearly 15 years, ever since we met in college. We'd had our ups and downs like any couple, but I'd always believed our bond was unbreakable. He was my rock, my support system, the one person I could always count on. Or so I thought. Dana had been my closest confidant for almost as long. We'd shared everything, our hopes, our dreams, our deepest secrets. She was the sister I'd never had. How could they have betrayed me like this? Snatching up my phone, I scrolled through our group chat history, my eyes stinging as I reread our messages. The inside jokes, the plans we'd made, the photos from our girls' nights out, all a lie. My chest tightened as anger and hurt warred within me. "Hey, you up for dinner tonight?" Dana had messaged me just last week. "It's been too long. Too long since what?" I wondered bitterly. "Since you stabbed me in the back?" Tossing my phone aside, I buried my face in my pillow, body-racking sobs shaking my frame. Amidst the torrent of emotions, one thought kept resurfacing. The little things I'd noticed but chosen to ignore. Theo's increasingly late nights at the office, the lingering perfume that clung to his clothes, a scent I didn't recognize, the way he'd grown more distant, more preoccupied in recent months. Fool, I berated myself. How could I have been so blind? Anger reignited within me, burning away the despair. I would not be the naive, clueless wife anymore. Dragging myself out of bed, I began to formulate a plan. If Theo wanted to play games, I'd show him exactly what I was capable of. Grabbing my laptop, I started digging, searching through our shared accounts, poring over phone records, analyzing every last detail of our lives with a calculating eye. I would uncover every sordid lie, every deception, and when I had all the evidence I needed, they would pay. Both of them. No more Mrs. Nice Girl. It was time to fight fire with fire. Over the next few days, I became a woman possessed. Every waking moment was dedicated to gathering evidence against Theo and Dana. I combed through phone records, bank statements, emails, anything that could shed light on their illicit affair. The more I uncovered, the sicker I felt. Countless hotel receipts, dozens of burner phone numbers, even a secret email account Theo had been using to communicate with her. How long had this been going on right under my nose? I needed more. More proof, more ammunition to use against them when the time came to confront their betrayal. Careful not to arouse Theo's suspicions, I suggested upgrading our home security system. With all the break-ins happening in the neighborhood lately, I think we should look into better cameras, I told him over dinner one night. You know, for peace of mind. Theo agreed readily enough, none the wiser as I installed discreet, hidden cameras throughout our house, including the bedroom. 3 days later, I got the evidence I'd been dreading. Theo was supposed to be working late, but the notification from the bedroom camera told a different story. Heart pounding, I pulled up the live feed on my laptop, fingers trembling. There they were, tangled together on our marital bed, locked in a passionate embrace. Dana's hands roamed greedily over my husband's body as he trailed kisses down her neck. The scene was like a dagger to my heart. I slammed the laptop shut, fighting waves of nausea. For a moment, I thought I might be sick. How could they? In our home, in the bed we'd shared for over a decade, white-hot fury blazed through me, burning away the hurt and anguish. They wanted to make a mockery of my marriage? Fine, I'd make them pay dearly for it. Jaw clenched, I began meticulously documenting everything, recording the videos, printing out financial statements, gathering a comprehensive dossier to use as a weapon against them. This was war, and I didn't intend to lose. When Theo finally came home hours later, I forced myself to act normal, keeping my anger tightly leashed. He'd never see the storm coming until it was too late. "Hey babe, sorry I'm so late," he said with a sheepish grin, dropping a kiss on my cheek. Client meetings ran over again. The blatant lie nearly made me snap. Instead, I just smiled thinly. "No worries. I understand how busy you've been lately." His smile faltered at my cool tone, but I didn't care. Let him wonder, let him squirm with guilt and trepidation, because soon Theo would realize just how big of a mistake he'd made. I would make sure of it. With each passing day, the evidence against Theo and Dana piled higher. Secret rendezvous at sleazy motels, hundreds of texts and emails exchanged, many too explicit for me to stomach reading. Financial records showing lavish gifts and getaways charged to our joint accounts. The sheer depth of their deception was staggering. How had I been so blind, so trusting? Naively, I'd believed our marriage was rock solid, while Theo was spinning an intricate web of lies behind my back. Sickened by their brazenness, I began plotting my revenge in earnest. I would confront them, but not before ensuring I had the upper hand. First, I needed an ally, someone just as invested in bringing them down as I was. The answer came in the form of Rick, Dana's poor, unsuspecting husband. "Rick, hey, it's Lena," I said softly when he answered the phone. I need to talk to you about something. It's important." Within the hour, he was at my door, brow furrowed with concern. "What's going on? You sounded really upset on the phone." I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "I found out that Theo and Dana have been having an affair, for who knows how long." Rick's face drained of color. "What? No, that can't be right. Dana would never." Mutely, I handed him the phone containing all the damning photos and videos, letting the evidence speak for itself. He scrolled in numb silence, the devastation etched into his features, cutting me to the core. This was the ultimate betrayal, and we'd both fallen victim to the same depravity. "That filthy lying whore," Rick spat, hurling the phone across the room with a noise of disgust. "I'll kill her. I'll fucking kill them both." I placed a calming hand on his arm. "Don't do anything rash just yet," I said, keeping my voice level. "That's exactly what they want, to make us the unhinged ones while they play the victims. We need to be smart about this. Rick's eyes bored into mine, blazing with hurt and rage. What did you have in mind? A grim smile tugged at my lips. We catch them together, in person, somewhere very public. Then we make a scene they'll never forget. For the next few days, Rick and I made our preparations, the bitterness and anger fueling our every move. I spearheaded the effort, keeping meticulous track of Theo and Dana's communications to determine the location of their next tryst. When the pieces fell into place, we were ready to strike. Well, fancy meeting you two here, I announced coldly, striding into the upscale restaurant trailed by Rick. My cheating husband and ex-best friend froze like deer in headlights, their perfect romantic evening about to come crashing down. It was time for the ultimate reckoning. In the days leading up to the confrontation, I was a whirlwind of activity. No detail was too small, no loose end left untied. This would be the moment I regained control, the moment I exposed Theo and Dana's reprehensible actions to the world. I made sure to have all my ducks in a row, legally speaking. I met with a high-powered divorce attorney and had the paperwork drawn up, ready to be filed at a moment's notice. My finances were separated, my assets protected. Anything of value that Theo could try to take or destroy in retaliation, precious heirlooms, important documents, I carefully stowed away in a secure location. He wouldn't be able to blindside me like he had before. Then there was the matter of pulling off the perfect scene for our very public reckoning. After some thought, I decided on Marco's, an ultra-romantic, incredibly exclusive restaurant that Theo had been raving about for weeks. Securing a reservation on such short notice took some creativity on my part. "Hi, I'm calling to make a reservation for two under the name Wilson," I told the snooty maitre d' in my sweetest voice. "You see, it's for our anniversary, and my husband has been just so excited about celebrating at your establishment." Dropping Theo's name and embellishing with a few personal details seemed to do the trick. They agreed to squeeze us in for the coveted 8 p.m. slot that Saturday night. With the plan in motion, all that remained was to get Theo and Dana to take the bait. Rick and I kept careful tabs on their communications, tracking their despicable pillow talk until the inevitable dinner date was set. Finally, the momentous evening arrived. I spent hours getting ready, dressing to the nines in my most devastatingly sexy cocktail dress and towering heels. Theo's eyes would be glued to me until the real fireworks began. At 7:30 on the dot, Rick and I strolled into the swanky restaurant side by side, the picture of polished confidence. I scanned the dimly lit dining room until I spotted the unmistakable forms of my husband and ex-best friend cuddled together in a cozy corner booth. Revulsion churned in my gut at the nauseating display. But this was it. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Locking eyes with Dana across the room, I allowed a slow, vindictive smile to spread across my face. "Showtime," I murmured. They gaped helplessly as Rick and I descended on their table like birds of prey. There would be no more secrets, no more lies this time. Only the bitter truth laid bare for all to see. Well, I sneered, voice dripping with disdain. "Isn't this just precious?" Dana's face drained of color, but Theo simply blinked at me in shock, momentarily speechless. So much for that legendary cool under pressure. "You two make just the cutest couple, don't you think?" I crooned, reaching out to trail a finger down Dana's cheek. She flinched, her disgust palpable. Rick slammed his hands on the table, making them both jump. "Give me one good reason why I shouldn't take you both out back and bash your skulls in," he snarled, eyes wild. For a long beat there was only stunned silence. Then Dana found her voice, reaching a shaking hand towards me in entreaty. "Lena, please. This isn't what it looks like. We never meant to hurt you." The deafening crack of my palm across her face cut off her pathetic excuse. Gasps rippled through the hushed dining room. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the maitre d' frantically waving for security. Not that it mattered. The real damage had already been done. "Save your lies," I hissed, leaning in until I could smell the booze on Theo's breath. "Consider this the end of our marriages. You'll be hearing from my lawyer shortly." Turning on my heel, I strode away, Rick at my side. Theo's frantic calls echoed in my wake, but I didn't look back. Not this time. After all, I'd already won. The The weeks following the disastrous dinner at Marco's were a whirlwind. Dana and Theo's desperate attempts at damage control fell on deaf ears. Rick and I were done listening to their lies. True to my word, I hired the most ruthless divorce attorney money could buy and filed the paperwork immediately. There would be no last-ditch efforts to save our sham of a marriage. Not after the depths of Theo's betrayal. He tried pleading with me, of course, called and texted incessantly, leaving long, rambling voicemails promising that their affair was over, begging me to give him another chance. "Lena, baby, I was so stupid," he sobbed during one such call, "but it's done, I swear. No more secrets, no more lies, just give me one more shot to make things right." I barely resisted the urge to laugh in his face. After everything, did he really think I was that naive? Dana's approach was more calculated, her messages laced with venom, as the realization set in that I wouldn't be manipulated again. "You're making a huge mistake here, Lena," she warned me one afternoon when I refused to answer her calls. "Theo and this is real. More real than whatever little fantasy you've been living in for years. He's going to leave you eventually, you know. Might as well cut your losses now before it gets even uglier." I merely deleted the venomous text without responding. Let the delusional bitch think what she wanted. Her words held no power over me now. Perhaps the most satisfying aspect was seeing the once unflappable Theo squirm under the scrutiny of his pristine reputation being called into question. With cold, calculated precision, I forwarded proof of his infidelity to his bosses, colleagues, business associates, anyone whose opinion of him mattered. The aftermath was deliciously brutal to witness. Meetings and client dinners abruptly canceled. The hush-hush rumors flying fast and furious behind his back. The disgusted, disappointed looks from those who had once admired and respected him. Theo's world was crumbling around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. Rich, too, seemed to find a grim sense of satisfaction in watching Dana suffer. Once a darling of the design world with a thriving business, her standing in the community took a nosedive after the cheating scandal broke. "Projects getting canceled left and right," he told me with a bitter chuckle one evening over drinks. We'd grown closer through our shared trauma, an unshakable alliance born of betrayal. Whoops, did I accidentally forward those incriminating pictures to all her colleagues and clients? My bad. Dana tried to maintain her poise, continuing to spin her web of lies even as it all unraveled around her. "This is just a twisted game Lena's playing," she sneered during a TV interview aimed at doing damage control. "She's unwell, consumed by jealousy and pettiness, all because Theo and I discovered a depth of feeling she could never." Rick's furious bellow cut off her diatribe. "That's enough out of you, you lying sack of shit!" The cameras kept rolling as he stormed onto the set, looming over Dana with clenched fists and blazing eyes. Security scrambled to intervene, but he shook them off with ease. "You think this is a game?" he roared, spittle flying. "You ruined my life, you miserable whore. Both of your lives." "Security," Dana cried, recoiling in terror. "Get him out of here." Rick's parting words dropped like a lead weight before he allowed himself to be escorted off stage. "Just you wait, Dana. This nightmare's only just beginning for you two." As the disastrous interview played on endless loop across news stations and social media platforms, I understood exactly what he meant. The reckoning had only begun, and Dana and Theo were about to learn that betraying me had been a grave mistake. The divorce proceedings were almost anticlimactic after the nuclear fallout Theo and Dana's affair had caused. With the mountain of evidence I'd painstakingly gathered, my attorney made short work of ensuring I received a generous settlement. Mr. Wilson's indiscretions have made this one of the more straightforward cases I've encountered, my laser-focused lawyer remarked with a thin smile as we reviewed the final paperwork. He'd be wise not to contest any of the terms. Theo didn't put up a fight, his spirit seemingly broken. The mighty marketing mogul had been reduced to a shell of his former self, his career in tatters, and his reputation utterly destroyed. Serves him right, I thought with a twist of satisfaction. As for Dana, well, let's just say karma came for her with a vengeance, courtesy of her soon-to-be ex-husband Rick. "You really think parading around with your little boy toy made you happy?" he snarled, looming over her as we divvied up assets. "Take a good look, because this is what true misery looks like." With vicious precision, Rick proceeded to dismantle nearly every aspect of Dana's carefully curated life. Her business receivables, her investment accounts, even the house they'd bought together. It all became battleground after battleground, with Rick wielding the full force of the law like a sledgehammer. By the time the dust settled, Dana had been utterly fleeced, left with a pittance of her net worth and her professional reputation in shreds. She deserved every bit of it after her disgusting betrayal. As a final insult, Rick had made sure to leak details of their toxic divorce proceedings to Dana's colleagues and friends, ensuring the juicy gossip would follow her for years to come. The scarlet letter she'd been branded with wouldn't be fading anytime soon. "Utter destitution looks good on you," Rick said with a harsh laugh as Dana was forcibly removed from the home they'd once shared, friends and family watching in mute horror. "But don't worry. At this rate, rock bottom is just around the corner." Her screams of protest were like music to my ears. Every ounce of misery inflicted was vindication, a balm to the gaping wounds she and Theo had inflicted with their selfish actions. As for me, well, I was finally free of the shackles of a toxic marriage, free to spread my wings and soar unburdened by lies and deception. It was an incredibly liberating feeling. Sure, there were still some loose ends to tie up in the wake of the tsunami of chaos caused by exposing Theo's affair. Muttered whispers from former friends followed me in certain social circles, though after witnessing my uncompromising dedication to delivering righteous vengeance, most knew better than to cross me. Then there was the tricky matter of public perception. "Miss Wilson, there have been some rumblings of concern over the heavy-handed tactics used in dissolving your marriage," one particularly bold reporter mentioned during a press junket. "Care to comment on accusations that you went too far?" I simply quirked an eyebrow, unmoved by his needling. "Too far? Please. After having my heart and my life shredded by two people I loved and trusted most?" A slow, razor-edged smile curved my lips. "Darling, I showed incredible restraint. Be grateful your pretty face is still intact." The reporter swallowed hard, his bravado extinguished as I leveled an icy glare in his direction. Satisfied, I turned on my heel and strode away, ready to embrace this new chapter of my life with open arms. Because in the end, despite their best efforts, Theo and Dana hadn't succeeded in breaking me. If anything, their unforgivable transgressions had awoken a merciless fire within, one that would never be extinguished. I was a woman reborn from the ashes of betrayal, and God help anyone who dared to cross me again. The divorce was finalized with ruthless efficiency, just as I'd wanted. Theo put up a meager fight, his lawyers quickly realizing the futility of going toe-to-toe with my legal team and the damning evidence stacked against him. In the end, I walked away with a generous settlement. Not that money could ever undo the profound betrayal I'd suffered. But it was a start, a foundation upon which I could build my new life free from the shackles of lies and deception. As the last remnants of my old life crumbled to dust, I surveyed the wreckage with a strange sense of calm. Yes, there was pain and anger still simmering beneath the surface, but overriding it all was a resilient determination to persevere, to rise like a phoenix from the ashes of heartbreak and humiliation. Theo and Dana's inability to take true accountability for their actions disgusted me. In all the pitiful, rambling apologies and attempts at reconciliation, never once did I detect genuine remorse, merely self-preservation instincts kicking in as the flames licked closer. The truth was, they were both fundamentally rotten people devoid of any true moral fiber, and I was well rid of their toxicity poisoning my existence any longer. With my newfound independence came a reinvigorating sense of purpose. Old hobbies and passions I'd let fall by the wayside were reignited as I reclaimed my identity beyond just being the wife. Evenings once occupied by draining emotional labor were now filled with book club meetings, cooking classes, early morning runs along the waterfront as the sun peeked over the horizon. I relished the solitude, reveling in putting myself first without guilt or obligation. My career also thrived as I poured my energies into new, exciting projects, no longer weighed down by the suffocating resentments of an unhappy home life. Slowly but surely, I rebuilt my world into something uniquely mine, a sanctuary meticulously curated to nurture my soul and bring me peace. There was power in taking back control that Theo and Dana had so carelessly stripped away. The friends who had eagerly turned on me during the scandal quickly realized their overtures would be rebuffed. I had no patience for fair-weather companions seeking to leech off my hard-earned success. My inner circle shrank. But what remained was an unshakable core of supportive, loyal hearts for whom I was eternally grateful. Rick became my closest confidant during those initial tumultuous months. We'd forged an unbreakable bond in the fires of shared trauma and betrayal. Where others in our lives had failed, we uplifted one another, not as self-pity acquaintances, but as respected comrades in arms. To new beginnings, he'd toast each time we met for our weekly drinks, clinking his glass against mine, and to leaving the assholes of our pasts where they belong, in the rearview mirror. I couldn't have said it better myself. My quest for vengeance might have stripped me of some illusions, but it had also reforged me with an indomitable spirit. A battle-hardened heart that would never be so naive as to hand out its trust indiscriminately. The woman I was 6 months ago was gone, banished along with the lies. In her place stood a new iteration, fierce, emboldened, unapologetic in her demands for loyalty and authenticity from those who entered her orbit. I'd been reborn from the fires of my own personal hell, and as I looked toward the hopeful horizon, I greeted the future with the hard-won lessons etched into my very bones. Never again would I be a willing victim of anyone else's deception. My focus was forging ahead, keeping my eyes trained on the winding path before me. Because this time, I held the map, and I alone would decide the journey's destinations. "You bastard! How could you do this to me, to our family?" The words tear from my throat, raw and seething. Zach just stands there, arms crossed, his face an infuriating mask of indifference. "Riley, let's be real here. Our marriage has been over for a long time. Amber actually appreciates me and my music." "Appreciates you?" I scoff. "She's a child, Zach. She's young enough to be your daughter." "She understands me," he insists, as if that justifies fathering a baby with his 28-year-old coworker. Rage boils in my veins. "I've supported you for years, working my ass off so you could chase your stupid pipe dream of being a rock star. And this is how you repay me?" "My music is not stupid." Zach's nostrils flare. "You've never believed in me, Riley. Not really. I believed in you enough to pay all the bills while you went gallivanting off to dive bars and open mic nights." My fists clench at my sides. "I kept this family afloat while you played at being a musician." "Played at?" "Screw you, Riley." Zach grabs his guitar case, his knuckles white. "You're a workaholic who never made time for me or my gigs. At least Amber is always there for me." "There for you," I repeat, incredulous, "while you knock her up and abandon your wife and teenage son." Zach's eyes narrow. "Don't bring Caleb into this." "He's already in this, Zach. He's going to college next year. Or have you forgotten you have another child to think about?" I'm done with this conversation. Zach storms toward the door. "I'm moving in with Amber. You and Caleb will be just fine without me cramping your style." "Don't you dare walk out that door, you son of a bitch!" But even as I shout the words, I know it's futile. The door slams with a deafening finality. I sink to the floor, anger and anguish warring in my chest. 17 years of marriage, over in an instant. 17 years of sacrificing my own dreams to support an ungrateful man-child who threw it all away for a newer model. Caleb finds me there later, his young face etched with concern. "Mom, what's wrong? Where's Dad?" I swipe at my tears, forcing myself to be strong for my son. "Your father left us, Caleb, for his pregnant girlfriend." Shock and hurt contort Caleb's features. "What? How could he?" Pulling him into a fierce hug, I vow, "It's going to be okay, baby. You and me, we're going to get through this. We don't need him." But even as I speak the words, the bitter seed of vengeance takes root in my heart. Zach doesn't get to just walk away unscathed. I'll make sure he pays for shattering our family. One way or another, he'll regret ever crossing me. The days bleed together in a haze of anger and exhaustion. I throw myself into work, trying to ignore the gaping hole Zach left in our lives. But the memories ambush me at every turn. Late nights hunched over spreadsheets, my eyes gritty from staring at the computer screen. Zach bursting into my home office, his face flushed with excitement. "Babe, you'll never guess what happened. I got a gig at the Viper Room." I'd mustered a tired smile. "That's great, honey. When is it?" "Next Friday. You're coming, right?" His eyes shone with hope. Guilt twisted my gut. I can't, Zach. I have a big presentation the next morning, but I'm sure you'll be amazing. His face fell. Right, of course. Work comes first. I reached for his hand. I'm sorry, But he pulled away, his voice bitter. Save it, Rye, I get it. You're busy being the breadwinner while I'm just the deadbeat chasing a dream. That's not what I meant. The door slammed behind him, cutting off my words. Now, staring at the empty space where his guitar used to lean against the wall, I wonder how many other moments I missed. Recitals, gigs, anniversaries. All sacrificed on the altar of my career. But damn it, I did what I had to do. I kept a roof over our heads and food on the table. What choice did I have with a husband more interested in partying than providing? A knock jolts me from my spiraling thoughts. Caleb pokes his head in, his eyes shadowed. Hey, Mom, I made dinner. Want to join me? My heart clenches. When did my baby boy grow up enough to take care of me? Sure, sweetie, I'll be right there. Over plates of spaghetti, Caleb clears his throat. Have you heard from Dad? I shake my head, stabbing at a meatball. Not a word. Apparently we're easy to forget. Caleb's jaw tightens. I don't get it. How could he just abandon us like this? For some chick he knocked up? I wish I knew. I sigh. But that's Zach for you. Always chasing the next shiny thing, damn the consequences. What are you going to do? The question hangs heavy in the air. What am I going to do? Let Zach skip off into the sunset with his new family while I pick up the pieces of the life he shattered? Hell no. I meet Caleb's gaze, a newfound resolve hardening my spine. I'm going to make him pay, Caleb. Your father doesn't get to just walk away from his responsibilities. Not this time. Caleb nods, a glimmer of satisfaction in his eyes. He deserves whatever's coming to him. Damn right he does. I reach across the table, squeezing my son's hand. But I need you to focus on school, okay? Let me handle your dad. I've got your back, Mom. Always. Emotion clogs my throat. I know you do, baby. We'll get through this together. That night, I lie awake, plotting my revenge. Zach thinks he can just discard us like yesterday's trash? He's got another thing coming. I'll hit him where it hurts the most. His wallet and his ego. I'll bleed him dry in the divorce, take every penny he has. I'll make sure the whole world knows what a pathetic excuse for a husband and father he is. By the time I'm done, Zach will be begging for mercy. But he'll get none from me. You wanted a divorce, Zach? You got it. Along with a scorned wife's wrath. Game on, asshole. The day Zach moves out, I come home to find his key on the kitchen counter, a hastily scribbled note beside it. Staying with Amber, I'll get the rest of my stuff later. 11 words. That's all our marriage is reduced to in the end. I crumple the note in my fist, hot tears pricking my eyes. The house feels too quiet, too empty without the constant strum of Zach's guitar. Caleb walks in, his backpack slung over one shoulder. He takes one look at my face and sighs. He's really gone, isn't he? I nod, not trusting my voice. Screw him. Caleb's tone is hard, unforgiving. We don't need that loser. A choked laugh escapes my lips. When did you get so wise? He shrugs. Someone has to be the adult around here. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My 17-year-old son, forced to grow up too fast because his father is a selfish prick. I pull Caleb into a hug, my voice fierce. I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry you have to deal with this. He hugs me back, his lanky frame dwarfing mine. It's not your fault, Mom. You didn't do anything wrong. But didn't I? Didn't I let Zach walk all over me for years, putting up with his broken promises and half-assed apologies? No more. It's time to take back control. The next day, I march into my boss's office and quit my job. Jan stares at me, her perfectly plucked eyebrows raised. Riley, are you sure about this? You're one of our top analysts. I nod, my chin high. I'm sure, Jan. It's time for a change. She purses her lips. Is this because of Zach? I heard about the divorce. Of course she did. Office gossip spreads faster than wildfire. It's because of me, I say firmly. I need to focus on what's important. And that's not slaving away at a job that barely leaves me time for my son. Jan's eyes soften. I understand. We'll miss you around here, Riley. I shake her hand, a weight lifting off my shoulders. Thank you for everything, Jan, but it's time I start putting myself first. That night, I break the news to Caleb over dinner. I quit my job today. His fork pauses halfway to his mouth. What, why? I take a deep breath. Because I'm starting my own business, a consulting firm based out of the house. Caleb's eyes widen. Whoa, that's huge, Mom. I know it's a risk, I admit, but I'm done playing it safe. I want to build something of my own, something I can be proud of. A slow grin spreads across Caleb's face. That's awesome. I'm proud of you, Mom. His words warm me from the inside out. Thanks, baby. It won't be easy, but we'll make it work. We always do. He raises his glass of water in a toast. To new beginnings. I clink my glass against his, a smile tugging at my lips. To new beginnings. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the empty space beside me, I feel a flicker of something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Zach may have shattered our family, but he doesn't get to destroy me. I'm Riley fucking Johnson. I'm a survivor, and I will rise from the ashes of this divorce, stronger than ever. Just watch me. 6 months later, I'm celebrating my first big client at a swanky downtown restaurant when I spot a familiar face across the room. Zach, looking haggard and disheveled, nursing a drink at the bar. I freeze, my champagne flute halfway to my lips. What the hell is he doing here? As if sensing my gaze, Zach looks up, his bloodshot eyes widening. He stumbles off his bar stool, weaving his way toward me. Riley. His voice is slurred, his breath reeking of whiskey. Fancy meeting you here. I set my glass down, my spine stiffening. What do you want, Zach? He collapses into the chair beside me, his head lolling back. She left me, Amber, she took the baby and split. A bitter laugh escapes my lips. Well, Karma's a bitch, isn't she? Zach's face crumples. I don't know what to do. I'm lost without her. Welcome to the club, I snap. You seem to have no problem leaving me and Caleb. He reaches for my hand, his fingers clammy. I made a mistake, Riley. I see that now. I never should have left you. I yank my hand away, disgust churning in my gut. You think you can just waltz back into our lives like nothing happened, like you didn't cheat on me and knock up some barely legal bimbo? Zach winces. I'm sorry, okay? I fucked up, but I'm still your husband. Doesn't that count for something? Ex-husband, I correct, my voice cold. Or did you forget I filed for divorce? His eyes widen. What? When? 2 months ago. I smile, sharp and brittle. You've been served, sweetheart. Check with your lawyer. Zach scrambles to his feet, swaying slightly. You can't do this, Riley. I won't sign the papers. I stand, grabbing my purse. You don't have a choice. I'm done being your doormat, Zach. I'm done letting you trample all over me and our son. Caleb needs his father. Zach's voice rises, drawing stares from nearby diners. Caleb needs a father who gives a damn about him, I hiss. Not some washed-up wannabe rock star who runs off the second some groupie bats her eyelashes. Zach recoils as if slapped. That's not fair. Life's not fair. I step around him, my heels clicking on the hardwood floor. You made your bed, Zach. Now lie in it. I walk out of the restaurant, my head held high, but inside I'm shaking. Seeing Zach again, so broken and pathetic, almost made me waver. Almost. I think of all the nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering what I did wrong. All the soccer games and school plays Zach missed because he was too busy chasing his music. All the times I had to be both mother and father to Caleb because his dad was too selfish to step up. No more. I'm done being the victim of Zach's choices. It's time for him to face the consequences. That night I hug Caleb extra tight before bed. I love you, kiddo. More than anything. He hugs me back, his chin resting on my shoulder. I love you too, Mom. Everything okay? I pull back, cupping his face in my hands. Everything's fine, baby. I just want you to know how proud I am of you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Caleb smiles, his eyes soft. Back at you, Mom. We make a pretty good team, huh? The best. I kiss his forehead. Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. As I slip into bed, I stare at the divorce papers on my nightstand, Zach's unsigned line glaring at me. Soon, I think. Soon I'll be free of him forever. And then, the real fun begins. A week later, I'm elbow deep in paperwork when the doorbell rings. I frown, glancing at the clock. Caleb's at basketball practice, and I'm not expecting any clients. I open the door to find Zach on my porch, a bouquet of wilted gas station flowers in his hand. Riley, please, just hear me out. I cross my arms, blocking the entrance. There's nothing to hear, Zach. We're done. He thrusts the flowers at me, his eyes pleading. I know I fucked up, okay? I know I hurt you and Caleb, but I'm begging you, give me another chance. I stare at him, incredulous. Another chance? Are you kidding me? You cheated on me, Zach. You got another woman pregnant. There's no coming back from that. Zach's shoulders slump. I made a mistake, Ree. A huge, stupid mistake. But I still love you. I always have. Funny way of showing it, I scoff. Where was that love when you were screwing your secretary? He flinches. I was weak. I was stupid. But I swear it meant nothing. Amber was just... If you say she was just a fling, I will punch you in the face, I growl. She was your girlfriend, Zach. The mother of your child. Zach's eyes fill with tears. I know, and I'm so sorry, Riley. I never meant to hurt you like this. Please, just... give me a chance to make it right. For a moment, I waver. A part of me, the part that remembers the good times, the laughter and the love, wants to believe him, wants to forgive him. But then I remember the pain, the betrayal, the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I did wrong, and I know I can never go back. No, I say, my voice steady. I gave you 17 years, Zach. 17 years of love and loyalty and support, and you threw it all away for a piece of ass. Zach opens his mouth to protest, but I hold up a hand. I'm done being your doormat. I'm done putting your needs before mine. I deserve better than a husband who runs off the second things get tough. Riley, please. Go home, Zach. I step back, my hand on the door. Go back to your parents, or your friends, or whoever will take you in. But don't come back here, we're finished. Zach stares at me, his face crumpling. For a second, I think he might argue, but then he nods, his shoulders sagging in defeat. I'm sorry, Riley, for everything. I watch him walk away, the flowers dangling limply from his hand. A part of me aches to call him back, to fall into his arms and pretend none of this ever happened. But I don't, I can't, because I'm not that woman anymore. I'm not the naive girl who believed in fairy tales and happily ever afters. I'm a survivor, a fighter, and I will not let Zach destroy me. That night, I sign the divorce papers with a steady hand. As I slide them into the envelope, I feel a weight lift off my shoulders. It's over. I'm free. And now the real work begins. I've built a life for myself, a business I can be proud of, a home for me and my son. But Zach, he's about to lose everything. And I'll be there to watch him fall. The divorce is finalized on a Tuesday. I sign the papers with a flourish, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. It's done. Zach is officially out of my life. Or so I think. 2 days later, I'm at my desk when my phone buzzes with an unknown number. I frown, swiping to answer. Hello? Is this Riley Johnson? A woman's voice asks, tight with anger. Yes, who is this? Amber. Amber Davis, your husband's girlfriend. I sit up straight, my grip tightening on the phone. Ex-husband, and why the hell are you calling me? Amber lets out a harsh laugh. Because your ex is a psycho, that's why. He won't stop harassing me. I rub my forehead, a headache brewing. What do you mean, harassing you? He keeps showing up at my work, demanding to see the baby. He's drunk off his ass, screaming about how I ruined his life. I close my eyes, exhaling slowly. Damn it, Zach. I'm sorry he's bothering you, Amber. But I don't see how this is my problem. It's your problem because he's your husband, Amber snaps. You need to control him before he does something stupid. He's not my husband anymore, I remind her coldly. And I'm not his keeper. If he's harassing you, call the cops. Amber makes a frustrated noise. You think I haven't tried that? They won't do anything unless he actually hurts me or the baby, which he's going to, if someone doesn't stop him. I pinch the bridge of my nose, anger simmering in my veins. Even now, even after everything, Zach is still making my life hell. What do you want from me, Amber? I want you to talk to him, she says, her voice cracking. I want you to make him leave us alone. I can't keep living like this, always looking over my shoulder. A bitter laugh escapes my lips. Join the club, honey. You think you're the first woman he's terrorized? Amber is silent for a moment, then quietly, I'm sorry, Riley. I never meant for any of this to happen. I snort. Sure you didn't. You just accidentally fell on his dick, right? I loved him, Amber whispers. I thought he loved me too. Yeah, well, Zach's really good at making women believe that. I hear Amber take a shaky breath. Will you talk to him, please? For the baby's sake, if not for mine. I stare at the divorce papers on my desk, Zach's signature still fresh. I should tell her to go to hell. It's not my job to clean up his messes anymore, but then I think of the baby, that innocent little girl caught in the crossfire of her parents' mistakes, just like Caleb was. Fine, I say, the word bitter on my tongue. I'll talk to him, but after that we're done. No more phone calls, no more favors. Understand? I understand. Amber's voice is thick with relief. Thank you, Riley. I hang up without saying goodbye, my mind racing. I need to deal with Zach once and for all. But this time, I'm not going to play nice. This time, I'm going to make him pay. I lean back in my chair, a slow smile spreading across my face. Oh, I'll talk to Zach all right, and by the time I'm done, he'll wish he never met me. I storm into Zach's apartment, the spare key he never bothered to take back clutched in my fist. He jerks up from the couch, his eyes bloodshot and bleary. Riley? What the hell? Sit down and shut up, I snap, slamming the door behind me. We need to talk. Zach sinks back onto the cushions, his face wary. If this is about the divorce settlement, it's not. I stand over him, my arms crossed. It's about you harassing Amber. His eyes widen. She called you? Damn right she did. Apparently you've been making quite the nuisance of yourself. Zach scowls. She won't let me see my daughter, Riley. What am I supposed to do? Oh, I don't know. Maybe not show up drunk at her work, screaming like a lunatic? He has the decency to look ashamed. I just want to be in my kid's life. Is that so wrong? I laugh, harsh and bitter. You didn't seem to care about being in Caleb's life. Why the sudden interest now? Zach flinches. That's different. Is it? I step closer, my voice low and dangerous. Because from where I'm standing, it looks like the same old shit. You being a selfish prick who only cares about himself. Zach surges to his feet, his face twisted with anger. You don't know anything about me and Amber. You have no right. I have every right, I shout. I'm the one who had to pick up the pieces when you walked out. I'm the one who had to explain to our son why his daddy wasn't coming home. Zach blanches. Riley. 17 years. Zach. 17 years of marriage, of love, of building a life together. And you threw it all away for what? A piece of ass and a baby you clearly don't give a damn about? That's not true, Zach protests weakly. I love my daughter. Bullshit. If you loved her, you'd be stepping up, not harassing her mother. You'd be getting your shit together, not wallowing in self-pity. Zach's shoulders slump. I don't know how, he whispers. I don't know how to do this without you. For a moment, I almost feel sorry for him. Almost. But then I remember the pain, the betrayal, the endless nights of crying myself to sleep, and my heart hardens. You should have thought of that before you stuck your dick in someone else. As Zach flinches like I've slapped him. I made a mistake, Riley. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it anymore. I take a step back, my voice cold. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave Amber alone. No more phone calls, no more surprise visits. If you want to see your daughter, you go through the courts like a civilized human being. Zach opens his mouth to argue, but I hold up a hand. I'm not finished. You're also going to sign over full custody of Caleb to me. No visitation, no joint decisions. He's my son now. You can't do that, Zach sputters. He's my kid, too. He stopped being your kid the second you walked out on him. I pull a sheaf of papers from my bag, thrusting them at Zach. Sign them. Now. Zach stares at the papers, his face crumpling. Riley, please, don't do this. You broke our family. Now you have to live with the consequences. With shaking hands, Zach signs the papers. I snatch them back, a grim satisfaction settling in my chest. It's done. I've won. As I turn to leave, Zach calls out, his voice broken. I loved you, Riley. I still do. I pause at the door, looking back at him. The man I once loved, now a pathetic shell of himself. And I loved you, Zach, but sometimes love isn't enough. I walk out, my head held high. The old Riley, the one who believed in forever, is gone. In her place is a woman who knows her worth. A woman who will never again settle for less than she deserves. A woman who is finally free. The years pass in a blur of triumphs and challenges. My business thrives, my client list growing by the day. Caleb graduates high school, then college, his eyes bright with promise. We move out of the house Zach and I once shared, into a sleek downtown apartment. A fresh start, unburdened by the weight of the past. I date, here and there. Nothing serious, nothing that sticks. My heart, once so easily given, is now guarded, cautious. I'm not bitter. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just content. Happy in my own company, in the life I've built for myself. Zach, on the other hand. I hear the rumors, whispers passed along by old friends and acquaintances. Zach, drunk and disorderly at a bar, ranting about the wife who ruined him. Zach, fired from yet another dead-end job, his music dreams long since faded. Zach, alone and miserable, his daughter a stranger to him. A part of me pities him, the man I once loved, reduced to this. But a larger part, the part that remembers the pain and the betrayal, thinks he got exactly what he deserved. You reap what you sow. and Zach planted a garden of misery. I see him only once at Caleb's wedding. He sits in the back row, his suit rumpled and his hair graying at the temples. He doesn't approach me, doesn't even meet my eyes. But as I watch my son exchange vows with the love of his life, I feel a flicker of gratitude, because without Zach's betrayal, without the fire that forged me, I wouldn't be the woman I am today. Strong, independent, unbreakable. The years keep turning, the seasons changing. I watch my grandchildren grow, my business expand, my life fill with love and laughter. And then one crisp autumn morning, I get the call. Zach is dead. A heart attack, alone in his shabby apartment. No one found him for days. I sit at my kitchen table, the phone pressed to my ear, and feel nothing. No grief, no anger, no regret, just a vague sense of sadness. For the man he could have been, for the life we could have shared. But that life, that man, they're long gone. Ghosts, faded by time and circumstance. I hang up the phone, my hand steady. I have a meeting to get to, a grandchild's birthday party to plan. The world keeps turning, even as Zach stops. I don't go to the funeral. There's no point, no closure to be found in a wooden box and a handful of dirt. Instead, I sit on my balcony, a glass of wine in hand, and watch the sun set over the city. The sky blazes orange and pink, the colors of a life well lived. I raise my glass, a silent toast to the man who broke my heart. The man who in the end gave me the greatest gift of all, the gift of myself, whole and undiminished. Goodbye, Zach, I whisper to the dying light, and thank you. I drain my glass, the wine sweet on my tongue. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new joys, new sorrows, but tonight I am at peace, content in the knowledge that I not only survived, but thrived. Zach's story may have ended, but mine is just beginning. The bitter chill of the Minnesota winter night bit into my skin as I stood shivering on the porch, my arms wrapped tightly around my pregnant belly. Maybe a night in the cold will cool down your high spirits, Elsie. Dalton's harsh words echoed in my ears as the door slammed shut, the lock clicking into place. I banged my fists against the unforgiving wood, shouting for him to let me back inside, but there was no response. Hot tears streamed down my cheeks, freezing on my face in the icy air. How could he do this to me? To us? I thought, my hand instinctively cradling my swollen stomach. Minutes ticked by like hours, and my teeth began to chatter uncontrollably. Just as I feared I might collapse from the cold, a familiar voice called out from the driveway. Elsie? What on earth are you doing out here? Relief washed over me as I recognized my brother-in-law, Rudy. Dalton. He locked me out. I managed to stammer through chattering teeth. Rudy's face contorted in anger as he rushed towards the door, pounding his fist against it. Dalton. Open up, you son of a bitch! After what felt like an eternity, the door finally swung open and Dalton appeared, his expression a mixture of surprise and annoyance. What's all the racket? Are you out of your mind? Rudy shouted, pushing past him and ushering me inside. Leaving your pregnant wife out in the cold like that? What were you thinking? Dalton scoffed, his arms folded across his chest. She needed to cool off. She was getting hysterical. My hands trembled as I peeled off my frozen coat, the warmth of the house stinging my skin. I wasn't being hysterical, Dalton. I was just trying to talk to you about our finances, and you completely shut me down like you always do. Rudy stepped between us, his protective instincts kicking in. That's no excuse, man. You can't treat her like that, especially in her condition. Dalton's eyes narrowed, and he jabbed a finger in Rudy's direction. Stay out of this, Rudy. It's between me and my wife. As the two brothers argued, I couldn't help but feel a lingering chill, not from the cold but from the realization that my husband's actions had crossed a line. In that moment, the seeds of doubt were planted, and I knew that things would never be the same between us again. Rudy's eyes burned with rage as he glared at Dalton. Don't give me that crap, bro. You know what you did was wrong. Dalton sneered, his hands balling into fists at his sides. I don't need a lecture from you, Rudy. Elsie's my wife, and I'll deal with her how I see fit. Deal with me? I couldn't believe the words coming out of his mouth. I'm not some kind of problem for you to deal with, Dalton. I'm your wife, the mother of your child. Dalton whirled around, his face twisted in anger. Don't you dare try to play the victim card with me, Elsie. You knew what you were getting into when you married me. Enough, Rudy shouted, stepping between us. This has gone too far, Dalton. Locking Elsie out in the freezing cold? What the hell were you thinking? Dalton's jaw clenched, and for a moment I thought he might take a swing at his own brother. I was thinking that my hormonal wife needed to cool off before she said something she'd regret. The only one who's going to regret something is you, bro, Rudy warned, his voice low and dangerous. If you ever pull a stunt like this again, I swear to God I'll make you pay. Dalton let out a harsh laugh, shaking his head. Is that a threat, Rudy? Because I'm not afraid of you or anyone else in this family. It's a promise, Rudy replied, his eyes narrowed. You've crossed a line, Dalton, and there are going to be consequences. As the two brothers squared off, the tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. I could feel the anger and resentment radiating off of them in waves, and I knew that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Later that night, as I lay in bed beside Dalton's sleeping form, I couldn't help but wonder where this all would lead. Rudy's words echoed in my mind. There are going to be consequences. And for the first time in a long time, I felt a glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, Dalton would finally face the consequences of his actions. In the days following Rudy's confrontation with Dalton, a palpable tension hung over our house like a dark cloud. Dalton became increasingly distant and withdrawn, spending more and more time away from home. I couldn't help but wonder where he was going and what he was doing. But every time I tried to broach the subject, he brushed me off with a dismissive wave of his hand. It was during one of Dalton's extended absences that I stumbled upon something that would change everything. I was cleaning out his home office, trying to bring some sense of order to the chaos, when I noticed a stack of unopened envelopes stuffed in the back of his desk drawer. Curiosity got the better of me, and I slid them out, my heart sinking as I read the return addresses. Various casinos and online gambling sites. As I tore open the envelopes one by one, the true extent of Dalton's betrayal became clear. He had racked up thousands of dollars in gambling debts, mortgaging our future and our child's future in the process. I felt sick to my stomach, the walls closing in around me as I realized the depth of his deception. When Dalton finally returned home later that night, I was waiting for him, the stack of envelopes clutched in my trembling hands. "What is all this?" I demanded, thrusting the papers in his face. He blanched, his eyes darting nervously around the room. "It's nothing, Elsie, just some bills, that's all." "Don't lie to me, Dalton," I shouted, my voice cracking with emotion. "These are from casinos and gambling sites. How could you do this to us, to our family?" Dalton's expression hardened, and he snatched the envelopes from my grasp. "You had no right going through my things," he growled. "This is none of your business." "None of my business?" I echoed incredulously. "We're supposed to be partners, Dalton, a team. But instead, you've been keeping secrets and racking up debts behind my back." He let out a bitter laugh, shaking his head. "Like you're one to talk about keeping secrets, Elsie. You think I don't know about your little flirtation with Rudy?" My heart stopped in my chest, and I felt the blood drain from my face. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb with me," he spat. "I've seen the way you two look at each other, the lingering touches, the inside jokes. It makes me sick." I opened my mouth to protest, but he held up a hand, silencing me. "Save it, Elsie. We're both guilty of betrayal here. The only difference is, I'm not ashamed of mine." With that, he turned on his heel and stormed out of the room, leaving me standing there in stunned silence. As the weight of his words sank in, I felt a fire ignite within me, a burning desire for revenge, for justice. Dalton had made his choices, and now it was time for him to face the consequences. The next morning, I wasted no time in calling Rudy and asking him to come over. If anyone could help me sort through this mess and figure out a plan of action, it was him. When he arrived, the look of concern on his face was evident. "What's going on, Elsie? You sounded pretty shaken up on the phone." I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the inevitable fallout. I found evidence of Dalton's gambling debts. "And that's not all. He's accusing me of having an affair with you." Rudy's eyes widened in shock and then narrowed in anger. "That son of a bitch, how dare he try to turn this around on you?" "I know," I said, my voice trembling. "But that's not even the worst part. He's not ashamed of what he's done, Rudy. He doesn't care that he's put our family's future at risk." Rudy shook his head in disbelief, running a hand through his hair. "Unbelievable. So what are we going to do about this?" A steely resolve settled over me, and I met his gaze with determination. We're going to make him pay. I want him to face the consequences of his actions once and for all. Rudy nodded, a grim expression on his face. Whatever you need, Elsie, I'm here for you. Just say the word. Over the next few hours, we pored over the evidence I had gathered, formulating a plan. We would start by contacting a lawyer and exploring our legal options. Dalton's gambling debts and potential financial fraud could be grounds for divorce and a favorable settlement. But that wasn't enough for me. I wanted Dalton to face the full weight of his betrayal, both legally and socially. With Rudy's help, I would gather the evidence of his emotional affairs and present it to our family and friends, ensuring that he was ostracized and held accountable for his actions. As the plan took shape, I could feel a sense of empowerment growing within me. For too long I had been the victim in this twisted narrative, but no more. It was time for Dalton to face the consequences of his choices, and I would stop at nothing to make sure justice was served. Rudy must have sensed the determination in my eyes, because he reached across the table and gave my hand a reassuring squeeze. "We've got this, Elsie. Dalton won't know what hit him." I nodded, squeezing his hand back. "Thank you, Rudy, for everything. I don't know what I'd do without you in my corner." As he flashed me a warm smile, I couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope for the future. A future where Dalton's toxic influence was nothing but a distant memory, and I could finally begin to rebuild my life on my own terms. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Rudy and I spent every spare moment gathering evidence and building our case against Dalton. I had never felt so focused, so driven in my life. Finally, the day came when Dalton returned from one of his mysterious trips. As soon as he walked through the door, I knew it was time to strike. "Welcome home, honey," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "Have a nice trip." He froze in the entryway, his eyes narrowing suspiciously. "What's going on, Elsie?" "Oh, nothing much," I replied, feigning nonchalance. "Just gathering a little evidence." With a dramatic flourish, I produced a stack of papers and photos, laying them out on the table in front of him. "Care to explain these?" Dalton's face paled as he took in the incriminating documents, bank statements, casino receipts, even grainy photos of him in compromising positions with other women. "Where did you get these?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. "Does it really matter?" I shot back. "You've been lying to me for months, Dalton, racking up debts, cheating on me, all while I've been carrying our child." His eyes narrowed to slits, and he jabbed a finger in my direction. "You had no right to go snooping through my things. This is a violation of my privacy." I let out a bitter laugh. "Privacy? You've got to be kidding me. After everything you've done, you have the nerve to talk about privacy?" Rudy, who had been standing silently in the corner, stepped forward. "Face it, Dalton, the jig is up. Elsie knows everything, and she's not going to let you get away with it anymore." Dalton whirled on his brother, his face contorted with rage. "Stay out of this, Rudy. This has nothing to do with you." "It has everything to do with me," Rudy retorted, his voice steady and unwavering. "Elsie is my family, and I'm not going to stand by and watch you treat her like garbage anymore." For a moment, it looked like Dalton might lunge at him, but then his shoulders slumped in defeat. He sank into a nearby chair, burying his face in his hands. "What do you want from me, Elsie?" he mumbled, his voice muffled. I straightened my spine, gathering every ounce of strength and determination I had. "I want you to take responsibility for your actions. I want a divorce, and I want you to pay back every single cent you've squandered on your gambling and your mistresses." Dalton's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. "You can't be serious." "Oh, I'm deadly serious," I replied, my voice steady and unwavering. "You've had your chance, Dalton, and you blew it. Now it's time for you to face the consequences." As I looked into his eyes, I could see the realization dawning, the understanding that his world was crumbling around him, and there was nothing he could do to stop it. For the first time in our marriage, I held all the power, and I wasn't about to let him off the hook. The days and weeks that followed were a whirlwind of legal proceedings and emotional turmoil. True to his nature, Dalton didn't go down without a fight, hiring a high-powered attorney and attempting to discredit me at every turn. "Your Honor, my client's estranged wife is clearly a scorned woman with an axe to grind," Dalton's lawyer drawled during one particularly heated court session. Her so-called evidence is nothing more than a desperate attempt to paint my client in a negative light. I felt my blood boil as the smarmy lawyer tried to twist the narrative, but Rudy's reassuring presence beside me helped me keep my composure. "That's a load of crap, and you know it," he muttered under his breath. "Stay strong, Elsie. We've got the truth on our side." As the proceedings dragged on, it became clear that Dalton's gambling debts and financial misdeeds were too much for even his high-priced legal team to overcome. The evidence was overwhelming, and the judge seemed increasingly unimpressed with his attempts to wriggle out of responsibility. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the judge delivered his ruling. "Mr. Thompson, the court has reviewed the evidence presented, and it is clear that you have engaged in a pattern of reckless and irresponsible behavior," he said, his voice stern and unyielding. "Your actions have put your family's financial security at grave risk, and your attempts to deflect blame or minimize your wrongdoing are both unacceptable and transparent." Dalton's face was a mask of fury as the judge continued. "In light of these findings, the court is awarding Mrs. Thompson full custody of your unborn child, as well as a substantial portion of your joint assets to ensure her financial stability moving forward. Furthermore, you will be required to pay back the full amount of your gambling debts and any associated legal fees incurred by your estranged wife." As the judge's gavel fell, I felt a wave of relief wash over me. It was finally over. Dalton had been held accountable for his actions, and I was free to start building a new life for myself and my child. But even as the courtroom cleared, Dalton refused to go quietly. He cornered me in the hallway, his eyes blazing with hatred. "You think you've won, don't you?" he hissed, his face inches from mine. "You think you've gotten your precious revenge, but mark my words, Elsie, this isn't over, not by a long shot." Before I could respond, Rudy was there, stepping between us and pushing Dalton back. "That's enough out of you," he growled. "You lost, Dalton. It's time to accept that and move on." Dalton glared at his brother, his fists clenched at his sides. For a moment, I thought he might try to take a swing, but then his shoulders slumped in defeat. "This isn't over," he repeated, his voice low and dangerous. "You'll see." As he turned and stormed away, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of unease. But Rudy's reassuring hand on my shoulder helped ground me in the moment. "Don't listen to him, Elsie," he said softly. "It's over. You've got your life back, and he's the one who's going to have to face the consequences of his actions for once." As I looked into Rudy's warm, supportive eyes, I knew he was right. The battle might have been won, but the war was far from over, and I was determined to come out on top, no matter what Dalton threw my way. With Dalton's toxic presence finally gone from my life, it was like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in years, I could breathe freely, without the constant fear and anxiety that had plagued me during our marriage. Rudy was there for me every step of the way, helping me sort through the tangled mess of my life and start rebuilding from the ground up. Whether it was lending a hand with practical matters like finding a new place to live or simply providing a listening ear when I needed to vent, his unwavering support was a lifeline that kept me grounded. "I don't know what I'd do without you, Rudy," I told him one evening as we sat on the porch of my new apartment, sipping lemonade and watching the sunset. He flashed me that warm, reassuring smile that had become so familiar. "You'd be just fine, Elsie. You're one of the strongest people I know." I couldn't help but shake my head in disagreement. "I don't know about that. If it wasn't for you standing by my side through all of this, I might have crumbled under the weight of it all." Reaching across the small table between us, Rudy gave my hand a gentle squeeze. "That's what family is for, right? Through thick and thin, we've got each other's backs." As our eyes met, I felt a flutter in my chest that had nothing to do with the impending arrival of my baby. There was a connection between us, a bond that went deeper than just familial ties, and in that moment, I realized that my feelings for Rudy were starting to evolve into something more. Over the next few weeks, as I settled into my new home and prepared for the birth of my child, Rudy was a constant presence in my life. He helped me set up the nursery, paint the walls, and assemble the crib, all while keeping my spirits high with his infectious humor and unwavering positivity. You know, I never thought I'd say this, but I'm actually excited to be a dad, he joked one day as we put the finishing touches on the nursery. I raised an eyebrow at him, unable to suppress a smile. Oh, really? And when did you and your wife decide to have a baby? Rudy laughed, shaking his head. You know what I mean, smartass. I'm just saying, being there for you, and this little one has really made me think about starting a family of my own someday. As he spoke, his gaze lingered on me, his eyes filled with a tenderness that made my heart skip a beat. In that moment, I knew that my feelings for him were more than just a fleeting crush. They were the beginnings of something real, something deep and unbreakable. And as I looked around at the peaceful sanctuary we had created together, I couldn't help but feel a sense of hope for the future. A future where Dalton was nothing but a distant memory, and the love and support of my newfound family was all that mattered. The first snowflakes of the season were just starting to drift lazily past the window when the contractions began. I gripped the arm of the rocking chair, letting out a sharp gasp of pain as the tightening sensation swept through my abdomen. "Rudy," I called out, my voice strained. "It's time!" Within seconds, he was at my side, his eyes wide with a mixture of excitement and panic. "Are you sure? Should we call your doctor?" I managed a tight nod, gritting my teeth against another wave of pain. "Yes, call them. And my mom, too. This baby isn't waiting for anyone." As Rudy sprung into action, making the necessary phone calls and gathering our hospital bags, I focused on my breathing, trying to ride out the contractions. It was finally happening. After months of preparation and anticipation, I was about to bring new life into this world. The next few hours were a blur of frantic activity, punctuated by moments of intense agony as the contractions grew stronger and more frequent. Through it all, Rudy was my rock, coaching me through the pain and offering words of encouragement whenever I felt like giving up. "You've got this, Elsie," he murmured, wiping the sweat from my brow with a cool cloth. "Just breathe, okay? You're doing amazing." When the moment finally arrived and our daughter's tiny cries filled the delivery room, it was like a weight had been lifted from my shoulders. As I cradled her perfect squirming form against my chest, tears of joy streamed down my face. "She's beautiful," Rudy whispered, his voice thick with emotion as he reached out to stroke her downy head. In that moment, all the pain and turmoil of the past year seemed to melt away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of love and hope. This tiny, precious life was a symbol of my strength, my resilience, a reminder that no matter how dark things may seem, there is always the promise of rebirth and renewal. As our families began to trickle into the room, cooing over the newest addition and offering their congratulations, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness that Dalton wasn't there to share in this momentous occasion. But then I remembered the hell he had put me through, the betrayal and lies that had nearly torn my world apart, and that feeling quickly dissipated. This was my victory. My triumph over the darkness that had threatened to consume me. And as I looked around at the smiling, supportive faces of my loved ones, my mother, my siblings, and of course Rudy, I knew that I had everything I needed right here. "Thank you," I whispered, catching Rudy's eye, "for being here, for everything." He smiled warmly, reaching out to give my hand a gentle squeeze. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be." In that moment, as the snow fell softly outside and our little family celebrated the arrival of new life, I knew that the future was wide open, full of possibilities and promise. The frost of my past with Dalton had finally melted away, and a new chapter was just beginning. In the dimly lit living room, I sat across from Derek, my husband of 10 years, trying to make sense of the words that had just left his mouth. "My house, my rules, Mom's moving in next week." I blinked, unsure if I had heard him correctly. "Excuse me, you can't be serious." Derek's expression hardened, his jaw set in a firm line. "I'm serious, Elaine. After Dad passed away, Mom has been all alone. It's our responsibility to take care of her now." "But why does she have to move in with us?" I protested, my voice rising. "Couldn't she stay in her own house, or maybe we could hire a caretaker?" He shook his head. "You know how she is. She'll never agree to that. Besides, it's only temporary until she gets back on her feet." I scoffed, unconvinced by his assurances. Muriel, Derek's mother, was a force to be reckoned with, a domineering, critical woman who had made my life miserable on countless occasions. The thought of her living under the same roof, invading our personal space, filled me with dread. "Derek, you can't just make a decision like this without consulting me," I said, struggling to keep my voice level. "This is our home, our family. Don't I get a say?" His eyes narrowed, and he let out an exasperated sigh. "Elaine, don't be so dramatic. It's just for a little while. I'm sure you two can get along if you both make an effort." I wanted to scream, to make him understand how unreasonable his request was, but I knew it would be futile. Derek had always been blind to his mother's manipulative ways, forever caught in her web of guilt and obligation. As I looked into his eyes, filled with a misguided sense of duty, I realized that this was not a battle I could win. Not now, at least. Muriel was coming, and I had no choice but to brace myself for the storm that was about to descend upon our once peaceful household. True to his word, Derek's mother, Muriel, arrived precisely a week later, her presence like a dark cloud looming over our once peaceful home. As she stepped through the door, dragging her overstuffed suitcases behind her, I could already sense the shift in the atmosphere. "Well, it's about time," she grumbled, her sharp gaze sweeping over the entryway with clear disdain. "I was beginning to think you'd forgotten about me." Derek rushed to her side. A forced smile plastered on his face. "Of course not, Mom. We're so glad you're here." Muriel waved him off dismissively, her attention zeroing in on me. "Elaine," she said, her voice dripping with thinly veiled contempt, "I hope you've prepared a proper room for me. I won't be sleeping on some ratty old sofa." I took a deep breath, determined not to let her get under my skin. Not yet, at least. "Welcome, Muriel. Your room is already upstairs. Let me show you." As I led her up the stairs, Muriel's critical gaze roamed over every inch of our home, her disapproving snorts and tuts echoing through the hallways. It was as if she was searching for flaws, eager to find something to complain about. Once we reached the guest room, she swept inside, running her finger along the dresser and inspecting it for dust. I suppose this will have to do," she muttered, clearly unimpressed with my efforts. I bit my tongue, reminding myself that losing my temper would only give her more ammunition. "If you need anything, just let me know," I said, my voice strained with forced politeness. Muriel fixed me with a withering look. "I'm sure I won't," she said, her tone dismissive. "I've raised a family before, you know. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." Before I could respond, she turned her back on me, effectively ending the conversation. I stood there for a moment, fuming silently, before retreating to the sanctuary of the kitchen. As the days passed, Muriel's presence became increasingly oppressive. She constantly criticized my parenting, my cooking, and my housekeeping skills, belittling me at every opportunity. Derek, caught in the middle, wavered between defending me and placating his mother, often leaving me feeling isolated and unsupported. "Can't you see what she's doing?" I pleaded with him one evening after Muriel had berated me for serving a meal she'd unfit for human consumption. Derek sighed, rubbing his temples wearily. "Mom's just set in her ways, Elaine. You know how she is." "That's no excuse," I shot back, my frustration boiling over. "She's treating me like a servant in my own home, and you're just letting her." His eyes flashed with anger. "Don't start this again. She's my mother, and she's going through a tough time. Can't you just try to be a little more understanding?" I stared at him, incredulous, wondering how a man I had once admired could be so blind to his mother's toxic behavior. In that moment, I realized that if I didn't take a stand, Muriel would continue to erode our relationship, our family, until there was nothing left. With a newfound determination, I resolved to take matters into my own hands. Muriel had declared war, and I had no choice but to fight back, for the sake of my own sanity and the preservation of my marriage. The tensions in our household continued to escalate, with Muriel's presence like a suffocating weight pressing down on us. Just when I thought she couldn't possibly push the boundaries any further, she proved me wrong in the most infuriating way. One morning, as I settled down at the small desk in the corner of the living room to work, Derek approached me with a sheepish expression. "Hey, Elaine, I need to talk to you about something," he said, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. I glanced up from my laptop, already sensing the impending argument. "What is it?" He cleared his throat, avoiding my gaze. Well, Mom mentioned that she needs a dedicated space to sort through Dad's belongings and handle his affairs, so I thought she could use the office for a little while. My heart sank as the realization dawned on me. The office? You mean my office, the space I use to work from home? Derek nodded, his expression apologetic but resolute. Just temporarily, until she gets everything sorted out. You can work from the living room for now. I stared at him, incredulous. Derek, you can't be serious. That's my dedicated workspace, where I have my files, my equipment, everything I need to do my job efficiently. I know, but this is important to Mom, he insisted, his tone pleading. She's going through a tough time, and we need to be there for her. I clenched my jaw, fighting back the urge to scream in frustration. It was always the same excuse, the same guilt trip, the same blind devotion to his mother's every whim. And what about me? I demanded, my voice rising. What about my needs, my job, my peace of mind in my own home? Derek's expression hardened, his patience wearing thin. Elaine, don't make this into a bigger deal than it is. It's just for a little while until Mom gets settled. I wanted to argue, to make him see reason, but I knew it would be futile. Muriel had wormed her way into his mind, convincing him that her demands were more important than my own. With a heavy heart, I begrudgingly packed up my things and relocated to the living room, my once comfortable workspace now reduced to a cramped corner amidst the chaos of our daily lives. As the days passed, the constant interruptions and lack of privacy made it nearly impossible to focus on my work. Muriel seemed to take perverse pleasure in barging into the living room at all hours, critiquing my every move and demanding attention for her latest grievance. "Elaine, have you seen my reading glasses?" she would call out, her tone accusatory. "I can't find them anywhere, and you know how important they are to me." Or she would hover nearby, loudly commenting on my phone calls or the clacking of my keyboard, her presence a constant distraction. "Must you make so much noise?" she would snap, her voice dripping with disdain. "It's giving me a headache." Through it all, Derek remained frustratingly oblivious, either dismissing my concerns or gently chiding me for not being more accommodating. "She's just going through a rough patch," he would say, his eyes pleading with me to understand. "Can't you cut her some slack?" But I had reached my breaking point. Muriel's constant intrusions were not only disrupting my work, but also eroding my sense of self-worth and autonomy. I felt like a prisoner in my own home, trapped by her emotional manipulation and Derek's unwavering loyalty to her. It was then that I realized something had to change. I couldn't continue living like this, constantly walking on eggshells and sacrificing my own well-being for Muriel's sake. If Derek wasn't willing to stand up for me, for our marriage, then I would have to take matters into my own hands. With each passing day, the tension in our home grew thicker, suffocating me with its weight. Muriel's presence had become a constant source of stress, her criticisms and demands chipping away at my sense of self-worth. I knew I couldn't continue living like this, a prisoner in my own home. That's when I started making plans. Late at night, after Derek had gone to bed and Muriel had retreated to her room, I would sit at my makeshift workspace in the living room, scouring the internet for apartment listings. I needed an escape, a place to call my own, where I could breathe freely without the constant fear of Muriel's judgmental gaze. I also reached out to a lawyer, discreetly inquiring about my rights in case of a separation. The thought of leaving Derek was gut-wrenching, but I knew I had to be prepared for the worst. If he couldn't see reason, if he continued to prioritize his mother's whims over our marriage, I might have no choice but to walk away. As the days went by, I started documenting Muriel's behavior, gathering evidence of her manipulation and emotional abuse. I recorded her derogatory comments, cataloged her unreasonable demands, and kept track of the unnecessary expenses she had pressured Derek into covering. It was during one of these covert recording sessions that I stumbled upon a damning piece of evidence. Muriel, unaware that my phone was capturing her every word, launched into a tirade about Derek, spewing venom and disdain for the very son she claimed to cherish. "That boy has always been a disappointment," she sneered, her voice laced with contempt. "Weak-willed and spineless, just like his father. Thank goodness I'm here to set him straight." I listened in stunned silence, my heart pounding in my chest as the truth of her manipulative ways became glaringly obvious. This was never about caring for Derek or helping him through a difficult time. It was about control, pure and simple. With trembling fingers, I saved the recording, knowing that this could be the key to opening Derek's eyes to his mother's true nature. But before I could confront him, I had to plant the seeds of doubt, carefully cultivating the cracks in his unwavering loyalty to Muriel. I started leaving small breadcrumbs for him to find, receipts for unnecessary purchases, snippets of overheard conversations that hinted at her disdain for him, little glimpses into the deception she had woven so expertly. At first, Derek brushed them off, making excuses or downplaying their significance. But as the evidence mounted, I could see the flickers of doubt beginning to take root in his mind. "Elaine, have you noticed anything strange about Mom lately?" he asked one evening, his brow furrowed with concern. I feigned innocence, keeping my expression neutral. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, clearly wrestling with his own thoughts. "I don't know. It's just some of the things she's been saying, the way she's been acting. It's almost like she's a different person." I seized the opportunity, treading carefully but firmly. "Derek, I've been trying to tell you for weeks. Your mother isn't the saint you think she is. She's been manipulating you, playing on your guilt and loyalty to get what she wants." He shook his head, his eyes clouded with denial. "No, that can't be true. She's my mother." With a heavy heart, I realized that it was time to reveal the truth, no matter how painful it might be. I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over the play button. "Listen to this," I said, bracing myself for the fallout. As Muriel's venomous words filled the room, Derek's face drained of color, his expression shifting from disbelief to anguish. It was a harsh awakening, but one that he desperately needed. The seeds of doubt had been planted, and now it was time to let them grow, no matter how painful the process might be. I steeled myself for the confrontation that was to come, knowing that the road ahead would be rocky, but determined to fight for our family's well-being, no matter the cost. With the seeds of doubt planted firmly in Derek's mind, I knew it was time to take the next step in my plan. Muriel's manipulative hold over him was starting to crack, and I needed to capitalize on that before she had a chance to regain control. I became more brazen in my efforts, leaving tangible evidence of her deception scattered around the house for Derek to stumble upon. A receipt for an extravagant purchase she had pressured him into making, a scathing email she had written about him behind his back, small glimpses into the web of lies she had so carefully woven. At first, Derek would confront me, his eyes clouded with confusion and denial. "Elaine, what is this? Why are you trying to turn me against my own mother?" But I would remain steadfast, gently reminding him of the truths he had already begun to uncover. "Derek, you know what she's capable of. You heard those recordings yourself. I'm just trying to open your eyes to the reality of the situation." Slowly but surely, the evidence began to pile up, creating a mountain of doubt that even Derek couldn't ignore. I could see the turmoil brewing within him, the internal struggle between his unwavering loyalty to his mother and the harsh realities he was being forced to confront. "I don't know what to believe anymore," he confessed one night, his voice heavy with anguish. "Everything I thought I knew about her, about our relationship, it's all crumbling." I reached out and squeezed his hand, offering what little comfort I could. "I know this is hard, Derek, but you have to face the truth, no matter how painful it might be." As the days passed, the tension in our home reached a boiling point. Muriel, sensing that her grip on Derek was slipping, became increasingly hostile and confrontational, lashing out at me with renewed venom. "You ungrateful wretch," she spat one afternoon, her eyes blazing with fury. "After everything I've done for this family, you dare to turn my own son against me?" I met her gaze unflinchingly, no longer cowering from her wrath. "I'm not turning anyone against you, Muriel. You're doing that all on your own with your lies and manipulation." She recoiled as if I had struck her, her face contorting into a mask of rage. "How dare you speak to me like that? Derek, control your wife before I'm forced to take matters into my own hands." But Derek remained silent, his expression a mixture of guilt and resolution. For the first time, he wasn't rushing to his mother's defense, wasn't placating her demands or falling prey to her emotional blackmail. Muriel seemed to sense the shift in the dynamic, her eyes darting between us with a mixture of disbelief and fear. "Derek? Derek, say something!" But he simply shook his head, his gaze heavy with a newfound clarity. "I think you should leave, Mom. This has gone too far." The words hung in the air like a death knell, shattering the illusion of control that Muriel had so carefully cultivated. For a moment she was rendered speechless, her mouth opening and closing like a gasping fish. Then, with a snarl of pure venom, she rounded on me. "You did this. You poisoned his mind against me, you manipulative harpy." I held my ground, refusing to be intimidated by her outburst. "I didn't have to do anything, Muriel. You showed Derek your true colors all on your own." With a wordless shriek of rage, she turned on her heel and stormed out of the room, leaving a heavy silence in her wake. Derek and I stood there, frozen, the weight of what had just transpired settling over us like a thick blanket. It was a pivotal moment, a turning point in our battle against Muriel's toxic influence. The confrontation had been explosive, but it had also been a necessary step in reclaiming our lives, our autonomy, and our sense of self-worth. As I looked at Derek, his shoulders slumped with the weight of 1,000 emotional burdens, I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope, a hope that we could emerge from this ordeal stronger, more resilient, and more united than ever before. The aftermath of Derek's confrontation with Muriel was like a powder keg, the tension in our home reaching a fever pitch. For days, an uneasy silence hung in the air, punctuated only by the occasional outburst from Muriel's room, where she had barricaded herself, spewing vitriol and threats. "You'll regret this, Derek," she would scream, her voice shrill and unhinged. "Mark my words, you'll come crawling back, begging for my forgiveness." Derek, for his part, remained steadfast in his resolve, though the weight of his decision was etched in the deep lines on his face and the haunted look in his eyes. "I can't believe it's come to this," he confessed to me one night, his voice heavy with a mixture of sadness and disbelief. "She's my mother, Elaine. How could she be so manipulative, toxic?" I offered, my tone gentle but firm. "Derek, you can't keep making excuses for her behavior. You saw the truth with your own eyes, heard it with your own ears." He nodded, running a hand through his hair in a weary gesture. I know, but it's a lot to process. You know, my entire life she's been this constant presence, this force that I've always looked up to, always tried to please. And now, to have that all come crashing down." I reached out and took his hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. "I understand, believe me. But you made the right choice, Derek. You stood up for yourself, for us, for our family. That takes courage." He managed a faint smile, his eyes filled with a mixture of gratitude and resolve. "I couldn't have done it without you, Elaine. You never gave up on me, even when I was too blind to see the truth." In that moment, I felt a surge of pride and affection for this man who had finally found the strength to break free from his mother's toxic grip. It had been a long, arduous journey, but we had weathered the storm together, our bond forged stronger in the crucible of adversity. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity as we prepared for Muriel's departure. Derek made arrangements for her to stay in a short-term rental while she sorted out her living situation, and I packed her belongings, careful to avoid any further confrontations. The day she was scheduled to leave, Muriel emerged from her room like a vengeful spirit, her eyes blazing with fury and her lips twisted into a snarl. "You'll pay for this, Elaine," she hissed, her voice dripping with venom. "You think you've won, but this isn't over. Not by a long shot." I met her gaze unflinchingly, refusing to be intimidated by her empty threats. "It's over, Muriel. You've lost, and it's time for you to leave." She opened her mouth to respond, but Derek stepped forward, his expression resolute. "Enough, Mom. It's time to go." For a moment, I thought she might lash out, her rage bubbling just beneath the surface. But then, with a final withering glare in my direction, she turned and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her with a force that rattled the windows. As the sound of her car faded into the distance, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a burden that had been pressing down on me for far too long. Derek pulled me into his arms, and we held each other tightly, savoring the newfound peace and quiet that enveloped our home. "It's over," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "She's gone." I nodded, feeling a sense of relief mixed with a twinge of sadness. As toxic as Muriel had been, she was still Derek's mother, and her absence left a void that would take time to heal. But in that moment, all I could focus on was the future, a future free from her manipulation, her cruelty, her poisonous influence. It was a fresh start, a chance to rebuild our lives on our own terms, and I was determined to make the most of it. With Muriel gone, the battle had been won. But the war, the struggle to reclaim our autonomy and our sense of self-worth, was just beginning. With Muriel's departure, a sense of uneasy calm settled over our home. The air felt lighter, the tension that had once choked us finally dissipating. But even in her absence, her toxic legacy lingered, casting a shadow over our newfound peace. Derek, in particular, seemed to be struggling with the aftermath of their confrontation. He would often retreat into a pensive silence, his brow furrowed as if grappling with some internal turmoil. "Are you okay?" I would ask, my voice gentle, probing. He would nod, forcing a tight smile. Yeah, I'm fine. Just processing everything, you know?" But I could see the pain in his eyes, the weight of a lifetime of manipulation and emotional abuse finally bearing down on him. Muriel may have been gone, but her hold on him ran deep, like twisted roots that would take time and effort to untangle. One evening, as we sat together in the living room, the silence stretched between us, heavy and oppressive. Derek fidgeted, his fingers drumming an agitated rhythm on the arm of the couch. "I should talk to her," he blurted out suddenly, his voice tinged with a mixture of determination and trepidation. I looked at him, puzzled. "Talk to who? Muriel?" He nodded, his jaw set in a firm line. I need to understand, to get some closure, I guess." I hesitated, uncertain. "Derek, are you sure that's a good idea? After everything she's put us through?" He ran a hand through his hair, his expression conflicted. I know, but she's still my mother, Elaine. I can't just cut her out of my life without at least trying to make sense of it all." I studied his face, seeing the raw emotions swirling behind his eyes. As much as I wanted to protest, to shield him from the potential hurt and manipulation that could arise from such a confrontation, I knew this was something he needed to do for himself. "Okay," I relented, reaching out to give his hand a reassuring squeeze. "Just be careful, all right? Don't let her pull you back into her web of lies." He managed a small smile, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I won't. I promise." The next day, Derek set out to meet with Muriel, a steely resolve in his demeanor. I could only hope that this encounter would bring him the closure he sought, rather than reigniting the trauma of her toxic influence. Hours ticked by, each minute stretching out like an eternity as I waited, my mind plagued by 1,000 anxious thoughts. What if she managed to manipulate him again? What if her venom seeped back into his psyche, undoing all the progress we had made? Finally, the sound of Derek's car pulling into the driveway snapped me out of my worried reverie. I rushed to the door, my heart pounding in my chest, bracing myself for whatever emotional turmoil awaited. The moment Derek stepped inside, I knew something had shifted. His face was pale, his expression haunted, as if he had witnessed something profoundly disturbing. "Derek? What happened?" I asked, my voice laced with concern. He shook his head slowly, his eyes distant and unfocused. She didn't even try to deny it, Elaine, not really." I furrowed my brow, confused. "Deny what?" Wordlessly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone, his fingers trembling slightly as he navigated to a recording. With a tap of the screen, Muriel's voice filled the room, harsh and unapologetic. "You're a fool, Derek," she sneered, her words laced with venom. "A weak, spineless fool, just like your father. Did you really think I cared about you, or that pathetic excuse for a wife of yours? I only ever wanted control, and you handed it to me on a silver platter." I gasped, my hand flying to my mouth as the full weight of her cruelty washed over me. But Muriel was just getting started, her tirade growing more venomous with each passing second. "You're nothing without me, Derek," she spat, her voice dripping with contempt. "You'll come crawling back, begging for my forgiveness, just like you always do. And when you do, I'll be there, ready to take back what's rightfully mine." The recording ended, but her words seemed to linger in the air, a poisonous miasma that threatened to suffocate us both. Derek stood there, frozen, his eyes brimming with a mixture of anguish and disbelief. She never loved me," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Not really, I was just a pawn in her twisted game of control." In that moment, my heart broke for the man I loved, for the lifetime of emotional abuse he had endured at the hands of the woman who was supposed to love and nurture him unconditionally. I stepped forward, wrapping my arms around him in a fierce embrace, offering what little comfort I could. "I'm so sorry, Derek," I murmured, my voice thick with emotion. "You didn't deserve any of this." He clung to me, his body shaking with silent sobs as the weight of Muriel's betrayal finally crashed down upon him. It was a harsh awakening, a brutal reckoning with the toxic reality that had been his entire life up until this point. As we stood there, holding each other in the wreckage of our shattered illusions, I knew that the road to healing would be long and arduous. But we would walk it together, one step at a time, towards a future free from Muriel's poisonous influence. It was the end of an era, the closing of a chapter that had been marred by pain and manipulation, and though the scars would linger, we had emerged from the fire tempered, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. In the weeks that followed Muriel's departure, Derek and I found ourselves navigating uncharted waters. The revelation of her true nature had left deep scars, and the process of healing and rebuilding our lives was a slow, often painful journey. At first, Derek retreated into himself, his eyes haunted by the weight of a lifetime of emotional manipulation. He would spend hours sitting in silence, his mind consumed by the echoes of Muriel's poisonous words. "How could I have been so blind?" he would murmur, his voice laced with a mixture of anguish and self-recrimination. "All those years she was just using me, controlling me, and I let her." During those dark moments, I would hold him close, offering what little comfort I could. "You're not to blame, Derek. She's the one who betrayed your trust, who abused your love and loyalty." Slowly, through countless conversations and late-night heart-to-hearts, the fog of denial began to lift. Derek started to see Muriel's actions for what they truly were, a twisted game of power and control, fueled by her own toxic insecurities and selfishness. As the weeks turned into months, we took small steps towards reclaiming our lives, our autonomy, and our sense of self-worth. Derek cut off all contact with Muriel, severing the toxic ties that had bound him for far too long. "I can't have her in my life anymore," he declared, his voice firm and resolute. "Not after everything she's done, everything she's put us through." I nodded, understanding the weight of his decision. "It's for the best. You need time and space to heal, to rebuild yourself without her poisonous influence." With Muriel effectively exiled from our lives, we turned our focus inward, working on strengthening the bonds of our own relationship. We sought out counseling, a neutral space where we could openly confront the trauma and emotional turmoil we had endured. "Communication is key," our therapist would remind us gently. "Don't let resentment or misunderstandings fester. Be open, be honest, and above all, be patient with each other." It was a journey of self-discovery, a process of peeling back the layers of hurt and dysfunction that Muriel had sown within us. There were setbacks, moments when old patterns threatened to resurface, but we confronted them head-on, determined to break the cycle of toxicity once and for all. As for Muriel, her life took an unexpected turn. Cut off from Derek's financial support and unable to manipulate her way into a cushy living situation, she found herself struggling to find a place that would accommodate her without demanding funds she no longer had access to. "She's been calling, begging for money," Derek confided in me one evening, his expression a mixture of pity and resolve. "Apparently, she's burned through her savings and can't afford the fancy retirement community she had her eye on." I shook my head, feeling a twinge of sadness amidst the satisfaction of seeing her reap the consequences of her actions. "What did you tell her?" Derek's jaw tightened, his eyes steely. "That she made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. I'm done enabling her toxic behavior." In the end, Muriel had no choice but to swallow her pride and accept a place in a modest, no-frills retirement home, a far cry from the lavish lifestyle she had envisioned for herself. It was a bitter pill for her to swallow, a harsh lesson in the karmic consequences of her manipulative ways. As for Derek and me, we emerged from the ashes of our ordeal stronger, more resilient, and more united than ever before. The scars of Muriel's emotional abuse would never fully heal, but we had found a way to move forward, to reclaim our lives and our happiness on our own terms. In the quiet moments, when the weight of the past threatened to overwhelm us, we would turn to each other, drawing strength and solace from the bond we had forged through fire and adversity. "We made it," Derek would whisper, his eyes shining with a mix of wonder and gratitude. "Against all odds, we made it through." And in those moments, I knew that no matter what challenges life threw our way, we would face them together. Our love and resilience a beacon guiding us towards a future of our own making. A future free from the toxic grip of Muriel's manipulation, forever. I slammed the phone down, my heart pounding. "Evan, pick up the damn phone! You've been fired!" No response. As usual, he'd ignored my calls during work hours. But this was different. This was a bombshell that could destroy everything we'd built. I stared at the termination letter, my hands trembling. How could this happen? Evan was a star analyst at his firm, always working late, taking business trips. We'd sacrificed so much for his career. Frantically, I tried his cell again. Right, straight to voicemail. I left another message, my voice shaking. "Evan, it's urgent, you've been fired." After what felt like an eternity, his call finally came through. "Are you serious?" he snapped. "Valerie, I told you not to call during work trips. Do you want to ruin everything for us?" "But you lost your job," I cried. "How could this happen?" "I'll figure it out," he growled. "Just stay out of it." The line went dead. I sank onto the couch, dazed. How were we going to manage? My freelance design gigs paid well, but not enough to cover our mortgage and Zoe's preschool fees. Panic gripped me as the reality sank in. Evan had been the bedrock of our family, working relentlessly to give us a comfortable life. And now, that security was shattered. What had gone so wrong? It had been 2 years since I left my corporate job to be a stay-at-home mom for Zoe. Evan and I agreed it was the best decision for our family, even if it meant tightening our budget. Little did I know, it would breed a toxic resentment that would tear us apart. "Must be nice to lounge around all day while I bust my ass," Evan sneered as he stormed through the door, disheveled from another late night at the office. I bit my tongue, cradling a sleepy Zoe. "I'm working hard, Evan. Just because I'm at home doesn't mean I'm not pulling my weight," he scoffed, slamming his briefcase down. "Oh yeah? Zoning out in front of Netflix all day is real hard work." A fury bubbled inside me, but I swallowed it. Arguing would only wake Zoe. "My freelance jobs pay more than my old salary. You know that." Evan's eyes narrowed. "For now. But it won't last forever." His words cut deep. Was he that resentful of my success? I thought he'd be proud of how far my design career had come. In the following weeks, the tension only escalated. Evan grew more distant, spending late nights at work, often neglecting to call if he was running behind. When he did come home, it was like walking on eggshells. One wrong word could set off an explosive fight. "Where were you?" I demanded one night as he slipped in well past midnight. "I've been worried sick?" Evan waved me off dismissively. "Work stuff, you wouldn't understand." That smug, condescending tone, it made my blood boil. At my core, I knew something was off, but I pushed those doubts aside. Zoe needed her father, and I refused to be the one who tore our family apart over baseless suspicions. Until that fateful day, the truth came crashing down around me. Evan's late nights and constant work trips were becoming too much. I needed answers. While he was away on yet another business trip, I decided to dig deeper. Clutching his laptop, I took a deep breath and typed in his password. My hands trembled as his inbox appeared on the screen. Hundreds of emails, but one name stuck out like a burning ember: Rachel Morgan. I clicked on their thread, and my jaw dropped. Flirtatious messages, plans for secret rendezvous, even intimate photos. The evidence was damning. My husband, the man I'd devoted myself to, was having an affair. White-hot fury coursed through me, quickly followed by a sickening wave of nausea. How could he do this to our family? To Zoe? The rational part of me urged caution. Confront him first, I told myself. Don't do anything rash. But as I scrolled further, rage won out over reason. I grabbed an empty flash drive and copied every last incriminating file and photo. Let him try to deny it with this proof. By the time Evan returned home, I had the disk tucked away and a plan forming. I forced a smile as he breezed through the door. "Hey, babe, miss me?" He swooped in for a kiss, his cologne sickly sweet. I turned my cheek, my jaw clenched. "Yeah, it's been real peaceful around here." Evan frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Oh, nothing," I shrugged, feigning nonchalance. "Just wondering how your business trip was." He bristled, raking a hand through his hair. You know how it is, Val. A lot of late nights, meetings, client dinners. My fists clenched at his blatant lies. I'm sure Rachel kept you company. Evan paled, all the color draining from his face. What are you talking about? Don't insult me by playing dumb. I spat the words like venom. I saw everything, Evan. The emails, the photos. How could you do this to us? For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, slowly, the shock on his face melted into an arrogant sneer. You never did know when to mind your own business. White-hot rage blinded me as my hand connected with his cheek. Get out! Get out of my house! Evan simply chuckled, unfazed by my outburst. This is my house too, sweetheart, but don't worry. I'll be going. With that, he turned on his heel and strode out, leaving me to crumple to the floor in anguished sobs. After the explosive confrontation with Evan, I knew I couldn't let this go. He had shattered our family, betrayed my trust in the worst way imaginable. There would be no forgiveness, only justice. The next morning I made some calls, first to a private investigator. If Evan thought his affair with Rachel was over, he was sorely mistaken. I needed evidence, cold, hard proof of his infidelity to use against him. Don't worry, Mrs. Turner, the PI assured me in his gravelly voice. We'll get everything you need to nail this guy. Next, I called my parents to arrange for Zoe to stay with them for a few days. I couldn't bear to have my sweet girl caught in the crossfire. Is everything okay, honey? My mom's worried voice crackled over the line. I took a deep, steadying breath. Not really, Mom. I found out Evan's been cheating. There was a stunned silence before she responded. Oh, Valerie, I'm so sorry. Bring Zoe over right away. With Zoe taken care of, I focused my energy on planning my revenge. Using the evidence I'd uncovered, I would bleed Evan dry. Take everything he had after he'd so callously thrown our family away. A few days later, the PI called with an update. Got eyes on the target, Mrs. Turner. He's back at the house with the mistress. Hot rage surged through me at the mention of Rachel's existence. I drew in a shaky breath to steady myself. Good, I'm on my way, and this time I'll be ready. I slipped into the darkened house, a burner phone in one hand to record their every move. Evan's car was out front, as was an unfamiliar sedan, no doubt Rachel's. Muffled voices drifted from the bedroom. I crept closer, stomach churning, and peered through the cracked door. There they were, tangled together like sordid lovers. My own husband, the man I'd promised my life to, locked in an intimate embrace with that woman. White-hot hatred surged through me. Well, I stepped into the doorway, holding up the phone to capture the shock on their faces. Isn't this just beautiful? Evan went ashen, clutching the sheets around his naked body. Valerie, baby, I can explain. Save it. I spat the words with cold fury. This little tryst is over. Get your things and get out, because I'm taking you for everything you're worth. Panic flickered across his features as realization dawned. You can't do this, Val. My eyes narrowed to slits. Watch me. With Evan and his mistress out of the house, I sprang into action. This was the moment I had been waiting for, a chance to watch karma unfold and serve up the ultimate revenge. I dialed the private investigator, adrenaline coursing through my veins. They're gone. Get your team over here now and set up the cameras. You got it, Mrs. Turner. We'll have eyes on the place in 20. True to his word, the PI and his crew arrived promptly, sweeping through the house to install hidden cameras and microphones. They worked swiftly and silently, like well-oiled machines. All set, the PI muttered gruffly. We'll pipe the feed directly to your laptop. You'll see and hear everything. I nodded curtly, my jaw clenched. Good. Now we wait. The hours ticked by agonizingly slow. I paced the cramped motel room, alternating between seething anger and icy determination. I would not let Evan wriggle out of this, not after the depth of his betrayal. Finally, around 9 p.m., movement flickered onto the laptop screen. My heartbeat quickened as Evan's car pulled into the driveway, followed closely by Rachel's. They hurried inside, hand in hand like shameless teenagers. Bile rose in my throat watching them together so intimately in my home. The place I had poured countless hours into decorating, filling it with memories and warmth, now tainted forever. Hidden microphones captured every sickening detail as they undressed each other between heated kisses. I felt like a voyeur invading my own life, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the awful scene unfolding. At last, they tumbled into the bedroom. Look, a mass of groping hands and whispered endearments. My fists clenched as their ecstatic cries rang out, a harsh reminder of the pleasure Evan took in his deception. I could have stormed in right then, gun blazing, and extracted the ultimate vengeance. But that's not what I wanted. Not yet. I needed to savor this, drag out Evan's humiliation and suffering as long as possible. So I kept watching, letting the white-hot fury build inside me with every lewd act captured on camera. Evan thought he could just carry on his tawdry affair, but he was gravely mistaken. When it was over, when they drifted into a deep, satisfied slumber beside one another, I finally let a twisted smile spread across my face. Sweet dreams, Evan, this is just the beginning. I let them bask in their post-coital bliss for a little while longer before making my grand entrance. Waiting only amplified the burn of betrayal clawing at my insides. Finally, I couldn't contain myself any longer. I burst through the bedroom door like a woman possessed, startling them both out of their reverie. Surprise, Evan. Did you really think you'd get away with this? I spat the words with cold, seething hatred. Evan's eyes went wide as saucers as he scrambled to cover his naked body. Valerie, this isn't what it looks like. The redhead beside him, Rachel, the homewrecker, let out a blood-curdling scream. She clutched the sheets to her bare chest, staring at me in abject horror. I merely laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Shut up, you little whore. This is between me and my degenerate husband. Turning back to Evan, I pierced him with a look of pure, white-hot loathing. I have everything, you lying sack of crap, every text, every email, every sick little photo and video. His face drained of all color. For once, the arrogant snake had no snide remark, no clever lie to wriggle his way out. That's right, I hissed, taking perverse satisfaction in his obvious panic. There's no more hiding, no more deception. I'm going to destroy you, Evan. Financially, professionally, you'll be left with nothing when I'm through. He opened his mouth, perhaps to plead or bargain, but I silenced him with a raised hand. Don't bother begging. It's over. I'm calling both our families right now and telling them everything. I whipped out my phone with a cruel smile. Then we can decide together how to proceed with the divorce. Rachel began sobbing hysterically at the mention of exposing their affair. Evan just sat frozen, the reality finally sinking in. With a few taps, I had both our parents on a video call, their confused faces appearing on the screen. Hi, folks, I said with forced cheerfulness. You'll never guess what I just walked in on. The looks of shock and outrage as I recounted the lurid tale were almost comical. Evan's father turned beet red, while my own mother dissolved into tears. You despicable bastard, my dad roared at Evan between my explanation. We're going to sue you for everything you've got. I flashed Evan a vindictive smile as I ended the call. You hear that, dear? This is what you get when you mess with a wronged woman. His shoulders slumped in defeat, the fight finally gone. And as for Rachel, she knew her part in our family's destruction was over. With a strangled cry, she gathered her things and fled from the room, from the life she helped turn upside down. I could have chased after her, but she was insignificant now. As I turned back to Evan, I felt a twisted sense of power. This was only the beginning of his suffering. The next morning, we all gathered at my parents' house, a forced family meeting to determine the aftermath of Evan's betrayal. The tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. My mom kept shooting Evan these wounded, disappointed looks that made him shrink back in shame. My dad just glowered, staying ominously silent as we waited for Evan's parents to arrive. When Alan and Susan finally swept through the door, I could instantly see the puffiness around Susan's eyes. She'd been crying, no doubt. Alan, on the other hand, looked like a brewing storm cloud ready to explode. You stupid, selfish boy, he roared as soon as he laid eyes on Evan, barely containing his rage. Do you have any idea what you've done? Evan stammered, struggling to find the words, but Alan wasn't having any of his excuses. You've disgraced this family's name, tarnished everything we've built with your philandering and reckless behavior. His face turned an alarming shade of crimson as he rounded on me next. And you? How could you let this happen right under your nose? My jaw dropped at his audacity to blame me. Before I could muster a response, my dad was on his feet, fury etched across his craggy features. Don't you dare put this on Valerie. She's the victim here. He jabbed a finger towards Evan. That degenerate is the one who broke his vows and risked everything for some cheap fling. It wasn't just a fling. Evan shouted desperately. Rachel means everything to me. I love her. You could have heard a pin drop in that moment. Even Alan looked stunned by his son's brazen admission, like he couldn't fathom the depth of Evan's selfish idiocy. My mom finally piped up, her voice shaky but determined. Well, if she means so much, I hope she was worth losing your family over, because that's exactly what's going to happen. Evan's eyes went wide with panic as the weight of her words hit him. Valerie, baby, you don't mean that. We can work through this. I let out a humorless laugh. Meeting his pleading gaze with cold resolution, I shook my head slowly. There's no we anymore, Evan. It's over. But Zoe, he was grasping at straws now. You can't take her from me. I'm still her father. That struck a nerve. In a flash I was on my feet, fury radiating off me in waves. Her father? I spat. You lost that right when you stuck your dick in that home-wrecking whore. Valerie? My mother gasped in shock, but I was too far gone. I want a divorce, full custody of Zoe, child support, split assets, the whole 9 yards. I pierced Evan with a look of pure loathing. And you're going to give it all to me without a fight. Otherwise, I'll take you for every last penny. For a long, tense moment, Evan said nothing. Then slowly, the fight seemed to leave him. His shoulders slumped in resignation. You can't be serious, Val. You're really going to do this? The question hung heavy in the air. I opened my mouth to answer, to utterly crush what little hope he clung to. But Alan beat me to it with a weary sigh. She's not the one you should be asking, son. He looked utterly defeated as he shook his head. You did this to yourself, to all of us. For the first time, I saw real remorse flicker across Evan's features as my father-in-law's words struck their mark. But it was too little, too late. I was already moving on, without him. The aftermath of confronting Evan was a whirlwind. 1 minute I was living my dream life as a wife and mother. The next, everything came crashing down around me in spectacular fashion. But I refused to be a victim. Not anymore. I gathered up what little dignity I had left and moved in with my parents, if only temporarily. It was a tight squeeze, but they insisted I stay as long as needed to get back on my feet. You focus on you and Zoe, my mom soothed as we settled into my old childhood bedroom. That no-good son of a bitch doesn't deserve another thought. Easier said than done. Despite my anger, my heart still ached with the gut punch of betrayal whenever I let my mind wander to Evan. But then I'd remember the cold, hard evidence of his unfaithfulness, and that ache would turn to a scorching fury. The divorce proceedings were underway thanks to my dad's ruthless legal team. Evan didn't even put up a fight, not after the brutal showdown that laid bare all his sins. I'd get everything I demanded and then some. And just when I thought he couldn't stoop any lower, a bombshell revelation rocked us all. During one meeting with the lawyers, Evan's own father dropped a truth bomb that left us all reeling. You need to know the real reason my son lost his job, Alan said gravely. It wasn't just the affairs or dereliction of duties. He paused, seemingly pained to even voice the words. Evan has a gambling problem, a big one. You could have heard a pin drop as that sank in. My own husband, frittering away our hard-earned money to feed his vice, lying through his teeth about it all along. That's why the company had to let him go, Alan continued, his voice thick with shame. He was making unauthorized trades to try and cover his losses. When it all unraveled, they had no choice. Suddenly, a lot of things started making sense. The long hours, the constant business trips, his reticence about our finances. While I spun my wheels as a freelancer, Evan was gambling our future away behind my back, as if the affair wasn't a deep enough wound. By the time all was said and done, Evan faced criminal charges for embezzlement from his firm. What little assets remained after settling the divorce went towards massive fines and legal fees. He truly had lost everything, his job, his family, his dignity. All over some tawdry fling and a self-destructive gambling sickness. As for me, I picked up the pieces and kept moving forward. One day at a time. My design work was thriving like never before as I poured all my energy into providing for Zoe. With my parents' endless support, I watched my little girl grow into a sweet, vibrant young lady, blissfully unaware of the betrayal that nearly tore our lives apart. Watching Zoe beam up at me with Evan's eyes, I no longer felt the sting of his deceit. Instead, a fierce sense of pride washed over me. I had risen from the ashes of my failed marriage, a stronger, more resilient woman. I'd walked through the fire, and despite everything, I had survived. I stare at the bank statement, my heart pounding. The numbers don't add up. Thousands of dollars, gone without a trace. I didn't make these withdrawals. Ash and I have a joint savings account, but he's never mentioned needing extra money. Something's not right. I call out to him, trying to keep my voice steady. Ash, have you been moving our savings? There are transactions I don't recognize. He walks into the room, his face a mask of confusion. What are you talking about? Lorelli, I haven't touched our savings. I show him the statement, pointing to the mysterious withdrawals. His eyes widen for a split second before he composes himself. I'm sure it's just a mistake. The bank probably messed up. I'll give them a call and sort it out. But I know he's lying. I can see it in the way his jaw clenches, the way he avoids my gaze. My husband, the man I've trusted for years, is hiding something from me. I nod, pretending to accept his explanation. Okay, thanks. Let me know what they say. As he leaves the room, I make a decision. I need to find out what he's up to. I can't just sit back and watch our savings disappear. That afternoon, while Ash is at work, I drive to the electronics store. I purchase a small GPS tracker, one that can be easily hidden in a car. I've never done anything like this before, but desperate times call for desperate measures. When Ash gets home that evening, I'm waiting for him in the garage. As he steps out of the car, I greet him with a smile, my heart racing. How was your day, honey? He shrugs, his eyes darting away from mine. Same old, nothing exciting. I nod, watching as he heads into the house. As soon as he's out of sight, I crouch down and attach the GPS tracker to the underside of his car. My hands shake as I secure it in place. I don't want to believe that Ash is capable of betraying me, but the evidence is mounting. The secretive phone calls, the late nights at the office, and now the missing money. I need answers, and I'll do whatever it takes to get them. That night, as I lie in bed next to my sleeping husband, I stare at the tracking app on my phone. The blinking dot represents Ash's car, parked in our driveway. I take a deep breath, knowing that tomorrow I'll finally start to unravel the truth. I never imagined I'd be playing detective in my own marriage, but here I am. My once perfect life is crumbling around me, and I'm determined to find out why. No matter what it takes, I will get to the bottom of this. As I drift off to sleep, my mind races with possibilities. What will I discover when I start following Ash's movements? Is he really leading a double life, or am I just being paranoid? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. My world will never be the same again. The next morning, I wake up with a sense of dread. I check the GPS tracker app on my phone and see that Ash's car is already on the move. I quickly get dressed and hop into my own vehicle, my heart pounding as I follow the blinking dot on the screen. The app leads me to a rundown apartment complex on the other side of town. I park a few blocks away and watch as Ash's car pulls into the lot. He gets out and heads inside, glancing around as if to make sure no one is watching. I wait for what feels like hours, my mind racing with possibilities. Is he meeting someone here? Is this where our missing money is going? Finally, Ash emerges from the building. I duck down in my seat, praying he doesn't spot me. He gets into his car and drives off, oblivious to my presence. I take a deep breath and approach the apartment complex. I find the unit Ash entered and knock on the door, my heart in my throat. A woman answers, her eyes widening when she sees me. Can I help you? I push past her into the apartment, my eyes scanning the room for any sign of Ash. Where is he? The woman looks confused. Where is who? I don't know what you're talking about. I turn to face her, my anger boiling over. Don't play dumb with me. I saw my husband come here. What's going on between you two? The woman's face pales. Your husband? I don't know any married men. I scoff, not believing her for a second. Right, and I suppose he just comes here to chat? I storm out of the apartment, my mind reeling. I knew Ash was hiding something, but an affair? How could he do this to me? I spend the rest of the day in a daze, going through the motions at work while my thoughts consume me. When I get home that evening, Ash is already there, acting as if nothing is wrong. I confront him, my voice shaking with anger. I followed you today, Ash. I know about the apartment and the woman. He looks at me, his expression a mix of shock and indignation. You followed me? What the hell, Lorelei? Don't you trust me? I laugh bitterly. Trust you? How can I trust you when you're sneaking around behind my back? Ash's face hardens. You're being paranoid. I'm not cheating on you. I was just helping a friend out with something. I shake my head, not buying his lies. A friend? Is that what we're calling her now? I saw the way you looked around before going inside. You didn't want anyone to see you. Ash throws his hands up in frustration. You know what? I'm not going to stand here and be accused of something I didn't do. If you can't trust me, that's your problem. He grabs his keys and storms out of the house, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I sink onto the couch, my head in my hands. How did we get here? How did my once loving husband turn into a liar and a cheat? I know I can't just sit back and let him get away with this. I need to find out the truth, no matter how painful it may be. I pull out my phone and start searching for private investigators in the area. If Ash won't come clean, I'll find someone who can uncover his secrets for me. As I scroll through the listings, a sense of determination washes over me. I will not be played for a fool. I will not let Ash destroy our marriage without a fight. One way or another, I will get to the bottom of this. And when I do, there will be hell to pay. Days turn into weeks as I obsessively track Ash's every move. The GPS tracker reveals a pattern of frequent visits to the mysterious apartment, often during times he claims to be working late or going out with friends. I can't take the uncertainty anymore. I need to see with my own eyes what he's doing there. On a sunny afternoon, I follow Ash to the apartment complex, parking a safe distance away. I watch as he enters the building, my heart racing with anticipation. Minutes later, a woman emerges from the same unit. She's young and attractive, with long dark hair and a confident stride. I snap a few photos of her with my phone, my hands shaking. As I sit there gathering evidence of my husband's betrayal, I feel a tap on my window. I jump, turning to see Ash standing outside my car, his face contorted with rage. I step out, my chin held high. How long has this been your secret, Ash? He grabs my arm, his grip tight. What the hell are you doing here, Loralee? Are you spying on me? I yank my arm away, glaring at him. I wouldn't have to if you weren't sneaking around with another woman. Ash looks around, his voice lowered. Keep your voice down. You don't know what you're talking about. I show him the photos on my phone, my eyes filled with tears. I know exactly what I'm talking about. Who is she, Ash? How long have you been seeing her? He runs a hand through his hair, his expression a mix of anger and frustration. Her name is Mallory, and it's not what you think. I scoff, not believing him for a second. Really? So you're not sleeping with her? You're not using our savings to fund your little love nest? Ash's face pales. You don't understand. It's complicated. I shake my head, my heart breaking. No, it's not. You're cheating on me, plain and simple, and you're using our hard-earned money to do it. He grabs my shoulders, his eyes desperate. Loralee, please, just let me explain. I push him away, my voice cold. I don't want to hear your excuses. I want you to end things with her. Now. Ash's jaw clenches. I can't do that. Mallory and we have something special, something I've never had with you. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stare at him, my vision blurred with tears. So that's it, then? You're choosing her over me? Over our marriage? He looks away, his voice quiet. I'm sorry, Loralee. I never meant for you to find out like this. I let out a bitter laugh. You never meant for me to find out at all. You were just going to keep lying to me, day after day, while you played house with your mistress. Ash reaches for me, but I step back. Don't touch me. I can't even look at you right now. I get back in my car, my heart shattered into a million pieces. As I drive away, I see Mallory watching from the apartment window, a smug smile on her face. I vow to myself that this isn't over. I won't let Ash and his mistress destroy everything we've built together. I'll hire the best divorce lawyer in town. I'll find a way to make Ash pay for what he's done. But first, I need to gather more evidence. I need to document every lie, every betrayal, every penny he's spent on his secret life. Ash may think he's gotten away with it, but he has no idea what's coming. I will make sure he regrets the day he ever decided to cheat on me. In the days following the confrontation, Ash grows increasingly distant and cruel. He stays out late, ignores my calls, and treats me with a cold indifference that cuts deeper than any argument ever could. I try to stay strong, focusing on gathering evidence of his infidelity. I go through his email, his social media accounts, anything that might give me a clue about his double life. That's when I find it, an email exchange between Ash and Mallory, filled with intimate details and plans for the future. They talk about starting a family together, about Mallory going off her birth control so they can have a baby. I feel sick to my stomach as I read their words. How could Ash do this to me? How could he plan a whole new life with another woman while still married to me? I print out the emails, my hands shaking with rage. I confront Ash that evening, slamming the papers down on the dinner table. What the hell is this, Ash? You're planning to have a baby with her. He looks at the emails, his face a mask of indifference. You wouldn't understand, Laura-Lee. Some of us want more from life. I stare at him, my mouth hanging open in shock. More from life? What about the life we have together? What about our marriage? Ash shrugs, his voice cold. Our marriage was a mistake. I never should have settled for you. His words cut me like a knife. I feel tears streaming down my face, but I refuse to let him see me break. Settled for me? Is that what you call the last 10 years of our lives together? He stands up, his eyes narrowed. Don't play the victim, Laura-Lee. You knew I was never happy with our boring suburban life. Mallory understands me in a way you never could. I shake my head, my heart shattering into a million pieces. I gave up everything for you, Ash. My career, my dreams, also I could be the perfect wife you always wanted. He scoffs, grabbing his jacket. Well, I guess that wasn't enough for me. I'm done living a lie. As he walks out the door, I crumple to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. How did my life come to this? How did the man I love turn into such a monster? I stay there for hours, crying until I have no tears left. When I finally pick myself up off the ground, I feel a new sense of determination rising within me. I won't let Ash get away with this. I won't let him destroy our marriage and walk away unscathed. I start making plans, researching divorce lawyers, and gathering all the evidence I can find of Ash's betrayal. I'll take him for everything he's worth, even if it means dragging his name through the mud. As I work, I stumble upon something even more shocking. Ash has been embezzling money from his company, funneling it into a secret account in Mallory's name. I feel a surge of triumph as I print out the bank statements. This is the smoking gun I need to take Ash down. I make copies of everything, storing them in a safe deposit box at the bank. I won't let Ash wriggle his way out of this one. He thinks he's so clever, so untouchable. But he has no idea what's coming for him. I'll make him pay for every lie, every betrayal, every heart-wrenching moment he's put me through. Ash may have started this war, but I'll be the one to finish it. And when I'm done, he'll wish he never laid eyes on Mallory. Just when I think things can't get any worse, I receive a letter from a lawyer. My hands tremble as I open the envelope, my heart pounding in my chest. The words on the page blur before my eyes. Ash has filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. He's claiming that I've been emotionally abusive, that I've made his life a living hell. But that's not the worst part. The papers state that I've agreed to a settlement, that I've signed away my rights to our house, our savings, everything we've built together. I feel like I can't breathe. I never signed any settlement papers. Ash must have forged my signature, just like he did with the bank statements. I call the lawyer's office, my voice shaking with anger. They confirm that the papers were filed by Ash, that he presented them with a signed agreement. I hang up the phone, my mind racing. How could Ash stoop so low? How could he try to rob me of everything I've worked so hard for? I confront him that night, the divorce papers clutched in my hand. He's sitting on the couch, watching TV like he doesn't have a care in the world. What the hell is this, Ash? You filed for divorce without even talking to me. He looks up at me, his expression bored. Laura-Lee, I've moved on. It's better for both of us. You'll see. I wave the papers in his face, my voice rising with each word. Better for both of us. You forged my signature, Ash. You're trying to take everything from me. He stands up, his eyes cold. I'm just taking what's rightfully mine. You've been holding me back for years, Laura-Lee. It's time for me to start living my life the way I want to. I feel my anger boiling over. I lunge at him, hitting him with the papers, screaming at the top of my lungs. He grabs my wrists, his grip tight. Don't make this harder than it needs to be, Laura-Lee. Just sign the papers and walk away. You don't want to fight me on this. I wrench myself free, my eyes blazing with fury. Oh, I don't. Watch me, Ash. I'll fight you with everything I have. I won't let you get away with this. He smirks, his expression smug. You don't have a choice. I've got the law on my side. No one will believe a word you say against me. I step back, my voice low and dangerous. We'll see about that. I've got proof of everything you've done. The embezzlement, the forgery, all of it. You're going down, Ash. His face pales for a moment before he regains his composure. You're bluffing. You don't have anything on me. I smile, a cold, calculated grin. Try me. I've got copies of everything, stored away where you'll never find them. If you don't back off, I'll make sure the whole world knows what a lying, cheating scumbag you really are. Ash's jaw clenches, his eyes narrowing. You wouldn't dare. I step forward, my face inches from his. Watch me. I've got nothing left to lose, Ash. You've taken everything from me, but I won't let you win. I'll fight you until my last breath. He steps back, his expression wary. You're making a big mistake, Loralee. You don't know who you're messing with. I laugh, a harsh, brittle sound. Oh, I know exactly who I'm messing with. A pathetic, small-minded man who thinks he can do whatever he wants without consequences. But you're wrong, Ash, and I'm going to prove it. I turn and walk out of the room, my head held high. Ash may have started this war, but I'll be the one to finish it. I've reached my breaking point, and now there's no going back. I'll make Ash pay for everything he's done, no matter what it takes. I spend the next few days gathering all the evidence I have against Ash. Bank statements, email exchanges, phone records, anything that proves his infidelity and financial fraud. I meet with a divorce lawyer, a fierce woman named Samantha, who assures me that we have a strong case. She's confident that we can not only nullify the forged settlement agreement, but also secure a favorable divorce settlement for me. But I want more than just a settlement. I want Ash to suffer the way he's made me suffer. I want him to feel the pain of losing everything he holds dear. I start by going through Ash's laptop while he's at work. I find even more evidence of his illegal dealings, including falsified expense reports and offshore bank accounts. I save everything to a flash drive, my heart racing with excitement. This is the ammunition I need to take Ash down once and for all. That evening, I confront him with the evidence. He's sitting at the kitchen table, going over some paperwork. You underestimated me, Ash. It's time I take control of my life. He looks up at me, his expression wary. What are you talking about, Loralee? I slide the flash drive across the table, a triumphant smile on my face. I've got proof of everything you've done. The embezzlement, the fraud, all of it. If you don't agree to my terms, I'll make sure this information gets into the right hands. Ash's face pales. He reaches for the flash drive, but I snatch it back. Not so fast. I want a divorce on my terms. I want the house, the cars, the savings accounts, everything. And I want you to sign a confession admitting to your crimes. He looks at me, his eyes narrowed. You're bluffing. You don't have the guts to go through with this. I laugh, a cold, harsh sound. Try me, Ash. I've got nothing left to lose. You've taken everything from me, but now I'm taking it all back. He stands up, his fists clenched. You crazy bitch. You think you can blackmail me? I'll destroy you. I stand my ground, my voice calm and steady. Go ahead and try, but remember, I've got copies of everything. If anything happens to me, the truth will come out. You'll lose everything. Ash's shoulders slump. He knows he's beaten. Fine, I'll give you what you want, but this isn't over, Loralee. You'll regret this. I smile, a cold, calculating grin. We'll see about that. Now, sign the papers. He does as I ask, his hand shaking with rage. When he's finished, I take the papers and the flash drive and walk out of the room. I feel a sense of triumph washing over me. For the first time in months, I feel like I'm in control of my own life. But I know this is just the beginning. Ash won't go down without a fight. He'll try to wriggle his way out of this, just like he always does. I need to stay one step ahead of him. I need to make sure that everyone knows the truth about who he really is. I start making plans, reaching out to old friends and contacts. I'll need all the help I can get if I'm going to take Ash down for good. But I'm ready for the fight. I've been through hell and back, and I've come out stronger than ever. Ash may have underestimated me, but he'll soon learn the true meaning of karma. I'll make sure of it. With the evidence of Ash's fraud and infidelity in hand, I decide it's time to take my revenge to the next level. I want to destroy his reputation, to make sure that everyone knows the kind of man he really is. I start by sending anonymous tips to his company's HR department, detailing his embezzlement and unethical behavior. I include copies of the falsified expense reports and bank statements, leaving no room for doubt. Next, I reach out to a journalist friend of mine, feeding her the story of Ash's affair and financial fraud. She's thrilled to have such a juicy scoop and promises to run the story on the front page of the local newspaper. But I'm not done yet. I want Ash to feel the full weight of his actions, to suffer the consequences in front of everyone he knows. I wait until the day of his big business meeting, the one he's been preparing for weeks. I know all the top executives will be there, hanging on his every word. I dress in my best suit and march into the office building, my head held high. I ignore the curious stares and whispers as I make my way to the conference room. I burst through the doors, interrupting Ash mid-sentence. He looks up at me, his face a mask of shock and anger. "What the hell are you doing here, Lorelei?" I smile, a cold, triumphant grin. "I'm here to tell everyone the truth about you, Ash, the kind of man you really are." I turn to face the room, my voice loud and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, my husband Ash is a liar and a cheat. He's been embezzling money from this company for years, using it to fund his affair with his mistress." The room erupts in gasps and murmurs. Ash's face turns a deep shade of red. "She's lying. Don't listen to her." But I'm not finished. I pull out the copies of the bank statements and expense reports, passing them around the room. I have proof of everything. Ash has been stealing from this company, from all of you. He's a fraud and a criminal. Ash lunges at me, his eyes blazing with fury. "Shut up, you crazy bitch. You're ruining everything." I dodge his grasp, my voice rising with each word. "No, Ash, you ruined everything. You ruined our marriage, our life together, and now you're going to pay for it." The executives are on their feet now, their faces a mix of shock and disgust. They surround Ash, demanding answers, threatening to call the police. I watch as he crumbles under the weight of his lies, his once perfect facade shattering into a million pieces. I feel a sense of satisfaction washing over me. Finally, Ash is getting what he deserves. Finally, the world can see him for the monster he really is. As I turn to leave, I hear Ash's voice, low and desperate. "Lorelei, please, don't do this. I'm sorry for everything." I pause, my hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I feel a flicker of pity for the man I once loved. But then I remember all the pain he's caused me, all the lies and betrayal. I look back at him, my voice cold and unforgiving. "It's too late for apologies, Ash. You made your choice. Now you have to live with the consequences." I walk out of the room, my head held high. I know that this is just the beginning of Ash's downfall. I know that he'll lose everything, his job, his reputation, his precious Mallory. But I don't care. I've already lost everything that mattered to me. And now, thanks to my revenge, Ash will know exactly how that feels. The fallout from my public exposure of Ash's crimes is swift and merciless. Within days, he's fired from his job, his professional reputation in tatters. The news of his affair and embezzlement spreads like wildfire, making headlines in every local paper and news channel. Mallory, of course, is quick to distance herself from the scandal. She releases a statement claiming that she had no idea about Ash's illegal activities, and that she's as much a victim as anyone else. I watch it all unfold with a sense of grim satisfaction. Finally, Ash is getting a taste of his own medicine. Finally, he's the one who's lost everything. But my victory is bittersweet. Even as I revel in Ash's downfall, I can't help but feel a sense of emptiness inside. My marriage, my life as I knew it, is gone forever, and no amount of revenge can change that. I throw myself into the divorce proceedings, determined to get everything I'm entitled to. Thanks to the evidence of Ash's financial fraud, I'm able to secure a generous settlement. The house, the cars, the majority of our savings. Ash, of course, fights me every step of the way. He tries to paint me as a vindictive, unstable woman who's out to ruin his life. But in the end, the truth speaks for itself. The judge sees through his lies and manipulations, and I come out on top. As I sign the final divorce papers, I feel a sense of relief wash over me. It's over. I'm free. I move into a new apartment, determined to start fresh. I reconnect with old friends, take up new hobbies, and focus on rebuilding my life. But even as I move forward, I can't shake the feeling that something is missing. I realize that, in my quest for revenge, I've lost sight of who I am and what I want. One day I run into Ash on the street. He looks haggard and defeated, a far cry from the confident, charming man I once knew. "Loralee," he says, his voice hoarse, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything." I look at him, my eyes cold. "It's too late for apologies, Ash. You made your choices, and now you have to live with them." He nods, his shoulders slumping. "I know. I just wanted you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I was stupid and selfish, and I'll regret it for the rest of my life." I feel a flicker of something, pity perhaps, or understanding. But I push it aside. "I'm not interested in your regrets, Ash. I'm moving on with my life, and I suggest you do the same." He gives me a sad smile. "I'm trying, Loralee, but it's not easy. You were the best thing that ever happened